Right, okay.
You're digging.
I'm not digging.
Well, you're fishing.
All right, see you Monday morning.
Good luck. You like fishing too, don't you?
do,
When's the
I
last time you went fishing? You used to do a lot of fishing, didn't
I
you?
did, yes. September? I don't know, Lee.
What's your fishing season now? Get the boat.
August? No, I don't know. No, it's too soon.
Is it?
I think so.
Why is it too soon?
I don't know, Lee.
Come on, we need to sit down and talk about this. Good luck.
We'll do. Yeah, later in the month. You
All
can
right.
come with me, all right?
I would like that.
All right, let's do that. All right, Lee, thanks very much indeed. That's Lee Gooch. I will push you overboard. That's Lee Gooch back with you Monday morning. Bright and early, of course, the 9 till noon show. Just about to get underway with our Friday panel. But first, let's get a news update. And it's over to Donald Kavanagh.
Thank you, Greg. Good morning. Donegal County Council has been told bylaws need to be introduced at piers in Inishowen, which are set to become much busier on foot of changes announced a week ago by Minister Charlie McConalogue. He announced that Bunagee, Glengad and Malin were being designated as EU entry ports for Northern Ireland registered fishing vessels. Inishowen councillor Johnny McGuinness says this is a welcome boost for the piers and believes there'll be significant demand for the service. However, he says it also raises safety concerns which must be addressed.
The basic safety parameters that you'd expect from a working environment like that simply do not exist. This is something that has to be let out upon immediately, and we've got to be proactive in enforcing measures, and we can't do that without bylaws. A harbour without a bylaw is simply an ungoverned area, and it's a recipe for disaster.
Long waiting times are identified as the biggest challenge in accessing child-adolescent mental health services. That's according to a new report on children's mental health. 78% of children surveyed said they'd experienced some mental health difficulties. Pressure in school, body image and social media were among the reasons that led to the issues. The Children's Ombudsman, Dr. Niall Muldoon, says children need to have proper mental supports available to them in the school setting.
I think that's a really important marker that the children themselves are saying that, because that's where they feel comfortable, it's where they're there every day, and it's where they feel that the service would be best provided. And I think that's something we need to move towards.
Up to 1,000 new jobs are being created in County Galway. Dexcom is building its global manufacturing facility in Athenry. The high-skilled roles will come on stream over the next 5 years. It'll provide around 500 construction jobs while it's being built and up to 1,000 high-tech graduate and technician positions. And the Taoiseach says the government remains committed to supporting the Ulster University campus at Magee College in Derry. The issue was raised in the Dáil this week by People Before Profit TD Richard Boyd Barrett, who said the issue had been raised with him by a number of people while he was canvassing in the region for his party's candidates in the upcoming local elections. He said promises have been made, but they haven't been followed through. Leo Varadkar told the Dáil the money will come as part of the Shared Island Initiative.
The programme for government affirms the government's commitment to greater investment in the northwest and border regions. There have been a series of Shared Island Fund allocations. Institutions have also successfully applied for funding through the Shared Island Local Authority Development Funding Scheme and the North-South Research Programme. Specifically in the Northwest, the Government is working to move ahead this year with our commitment under the New Decade New Approach Agreement to capital investment at Ulster University's campus in Derry to expand provision for young people in the region.
Weather forecast, and it's been a dull start with rain lingering for a time according to Met Éireann. Sunny spells and showers will follow. Some of those showers heavy and possibly thundery in the afternoon and early evening. Some spot flooding possible. Top temperatures 14 to 18 degrees Celsius with light to moderate southerly breezes. And that's Highland Radio News. We're back with news in full at 10 o'clock. Until then, from the news team, good morning.
$13.99 at Dunnes Stores gets your pet a bag of pedigree dog food. At Aldi, only $9.24 gets your pet a larger bag of Earl's dog food, plus mega chew bones, plus assorted biscuit shapes, plus meaty beef strips, plus dental sticks and tasty twists. And still have $4.75 left over. You won't just like more value, you'll love it. Aldi, every day amazing. Dunnes Stores price checked on dunnesstoresgrocery.com 4th to the 4th, 23. Dunnes Stores may sell equivalent own brand products at lower prices. Details at aldi.ie/swap. Excludes offers, products and prices may vary.
The county's #1 talk show, the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. And now it's time for the talk of the Northwest, the 9 to noon show with Greg Hughes on Highland Radio.
Hello, good morning. 4 minutes past 9 on this Friday, the 5th of May, 2023. How are you doing? I do hope you're very well indeed, and hopefully you're along for the ride for the next 3 hours here on the 9 till noon show. We have our Friday panel joining us very shortly, but we want you involved in the conversation as well as we run through our various topics. If you want to WhatsApp or text 086 60 25,000, 086 60 25,000. If you prefer to call, we've got Niamh and Donna-Marie taking your calls on 07491 25,000. And you can also email comments@highlandradio.com, and feel free to join us and watch the programme across our YouTube, Highland Radio Ireland. You can watch on your Fire Stick or your smart TV, or across our Facebook pages as well, and indeed on our website. Okay, so without further ado, let's say good morning to Emer McGuinness, manager of the Donegal Mart. Good morning to you, Emer.
Good morning, Greg. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you back on the show. Thanks for accepting the invite. Professor Pat O'Connor is a Professor of Sociology, Social Policy at Limerick University. Pat, always a pleasure to have you on the show as well. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Greg. Thank you for having me.
And our final guest, Cahirlock Liam Blaney. Good morning to you, Liam. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Greg.
It's great to have you with us. Okay. Much conversation this week in certain areas about new laws that are aimed at curbing hate speech. They've sparked controversy in Ireland and abroad. The updated legislation will create landmark laws to deal with hate crimes, making an offence to deny or trivialise genocide, and expand protection to include gender identity and disability. Opponents of the Criminal Justice Bill have raised concerns the changes go too far and will stifle free speech. However, their defenders say Ireland's current legislation has been outstripped by the internet and contains significant blind spots. Existing hate speech laws date back to 1989 with the Prohibition of Incite to Hatred Act. This makes it an offence to communicate threatening, abusive or insulting material that's likely to stir up hatred against a group of people. However, under this new law, a person can defend themselves against charges by proving they did not intend to spread hatred, and the onus can be on the person with hateful material, let me put it like that, on their devices, for an example, to have to prove that they didn't have an intention to use it for hate. It passed through the Dáil. I think there was only 15 opponents to it. I'll go to you, if that's all right, Professor Pat O'Connor, first. It hasn't... I mean, this is perhaps reasonably significant, or maybe it's not. Maybe the significance of it is being amplified by some sections. I don't know. What's your views on it?
I think partly there's been less comment because it's taken so long. It's basically been on the go since 2021, and I think currently, new topics are welcome and discussed, but the public has very little interest in things that have been going on for years. I think this is an important piece of legislation, and it's difficult to know, will it work? And in a way, we'll only see that when it's enacted. I suppose what strikes me often is the people who are most vociferous about rights to free speech are the people who seem to have least awareness of the balance between free speech and kind of a social contract whereby you tolerate and accept the importance of discussion, but don't really personally attack people who have certain views, or for example, people in the context of women, some people, a minority I hope, do not accept that women should have a voice in the public arena, and hence they are determined to silence them in those arenas, and obviously in the name of free speech sometimes. And obviously, I don't think that's a good thing. I did like Helen McEntee in defending this bill, stress the importance of recognising that often these claims to free speech were about legitimating the desire to create fear in people and to silence them, and that cannot be tolerated. There is, of course, a balance between free speech and the protection of people who are seen as in some way different, whether in terms of gender or ethnicity or whatever. But personally, I think this is important, but an important piece of legislation. But the question is, will it be implemented and will it work? We tend to be great at passing laws, but not so good at implementing them.
Emer, some people feel that, it might stifle debate, or if you have issues with things and you express those concerns and, say, for instance, people believe that the issue of transgenderism, for an example, that you couldn't oppose certain changes in laws or what might be spoken in schools or something like that there, for fear that you could be dragged up under these really strong laws as being sort of anti-trans or something. That seems to be much of the concern that's out there. That's only one example of a topic, for example.
I think a lot of the concern would be, what is hate? The definition of hate hasn't been defined properly within the legislation. And I think what a lot of the people that would have went against this going through the Dáil would feel that before it goes through, they didn't disagree with it passing through the Dáil. What they disagreed with was that hate was not defined. I suppose a lot of it, and I was trying to think, why did it pass so freely through the Dáil? A lot of our politicians, for example, they get an awful lot of hate and a lot of things said about them online, which is, and would you call that freedom of speech, or would you call that keyboard warriors venting their frustration with them? And is it nice? No. Is it acceptable? No. But that line, where's that fine line where someone is allowed to say what they think, is allowed to get angry with a politician? I'm just using politicians as an example, because they do get a lot of it. I do think they need to go back and look at it, and I think that should be fought hard on, to amend certain areas of it. No, people should not be allowed to say Islam.
But victims of hate crime are targeted to prejudice against their age, their ability, ethnicity, religion, nationality, sexual orientation or gender. So that would mean effectively you could criticise, say, for instance, Leo Varadkar, based on what he does, his policies, whether you agree or disagree, but you couldn't do it at the same time as using a racial or an homophobic slur, for an example.
Well, you see, and again, that is why I think this is at the forefront and passed through so readily through the Dáil. And for all them reasons that you've just stated, I don't think people should comment on anybody else. Everybody should be allowed to live as they want. But that also, where does freedom of speech come into play? Are we going to completely back up the court system? Like, this will be taken to the letter of the law in some areas and with some guards. And if there's a report made to the guards, they will have to follow suit on this. And we have a court system that's backed up with so many different, the court system's completely jammed up. And now we're just it makes it easier to get prosecutions. That's what happens now. I do believe anybody that towards violence or all them things, we should have a law for that. And the law needs to be updated for that. But I think we've gone a little bit too far on this one.
Yeah, what do you think, Liam? Because there is the fear there that these changes could lead to simply politically incorrect views being censored. And I mentioned issues around trans rights because that's very big at the moment. But also the laws would make it much easier to secure a conviction for hate crimes. I think that's generally accepted. And does that mean then that people who are opposed to immigration, that if they were to protest that could be deemed to be anti a particular group, for an example? That's what I think people are afraid of, that this will actually, even if it doesn't directly, if people do it, it'll discourage it, I think. I think people feel that this is a way of, dampening down public discourse.
Well, I do believe that something had to be done with it. Have gone too far. The as you said earlier, there, the regulations and the laws that's there present as outdated because of the internet. And you say it's easier to get convictions. It's not that easy to get a conviction in court. You have to prove without doubt. And a lot of people go to court. A lot of cases taken to court thinking they have it proven, and it's a simple matter. But it's not that easy to get a conviction. You have to be 100% proven that the person meant what they said and understood what they said. And I don't think it's going to be that easy to convict somebody because of something they say, because their opinion of what they said and your opinion and my opinion could be three different opinions of it. And they might have said something and not intended the way some people would take it, or take it out of context. So it's hard to know whether it's gone too far or whether it's gone far enough. But I do believe something definitely had to be done. And that's very welcome that that's been tackled, and only time will tell whether they have gone too far with it or not.
Yeah, but Pat, how do we sort of keep checks and balances on this through this process then? Because it did kind of just not come out of the blue. Obviously, it's been a long time and it's working, but it did just, it's through the door, voted on, and now we're talking about it. Do you know what I mean? At what point in a process like this is there a public input to it? I mean, in fairness, there was a public consultation. The majority of people did believe that these laws go too far. The government, in formulating it, did disregard that. And I think I heard comments from Leo Varadkar yesterday suggesting that, sometimes these public consultation processes can be hijacked by certain groups with an agenda, and that also government really don't have to listen to them. So what is the point then of these public consultation periods? Like, do we need to roll back on this a bit, Pat, do you think?
Well, I mean, I suppose not. I think we shouldn't roll back for the moment. There has been a kind of a crudification of the public discourse over the past 20 years. The legislation that was passed in 1989 has had only 50 prosecutions in 30 years, right? We all know the kind of hate speech. And while people were talking, I looked up what hate speech was I thought to myself, well, what exactly is hate speech? And it's speech which is basically speech or writing which expresses prejudice on the basis of whether ethnicity, religion, etc. So the example you gave yourself, that in a way one can disagree violently with Leo Varadkar's policies or opinions, but saying it's because he is of a particular descent or because he's homosexual or whatever, that is unacceptable. And really, we need to call it out, because it seems at the minute, I agree with both Liam and Emer on this, anything, it seems, at the minute can be said, and particularly on the internet where people are anonymous often, there is no feeling of taking responsibility for your words, for your actions. And really, that is not acceptable. It's sort of, I suppose I think of it, it's like in the playground, picking on people, bullying, right? Somebody smaller or, different from you. And that kind of attitude has to be rooted out. Now, of course, there'll always be, how do you really, get the balance right? But we know the balance isn't right. We know the last legislation, 1989, my God, it's another world. We know there've been very few, as I say, over 30 years, there's been about one prosecution a year. So really something needs to be done. And if in a way this will be monitored and we can tweak it, but there needs to be, we're increasingly diverse society. I mean, there was an item just this morning talking about travellers. We know that racism and misogyny...
Well, you see, it's interesting. The case you talk of is Senator Eileen Flynn, who'll be talking to us a little later on, and she was recounting her experience whereby a taxi driver wouldn't drop her off at a halting site. Now, in speaking out, it opened the floodgates on social media for offensive language.
Exactly. But in a way,
so why would you speak out? Because it just seemed to be open season on her then, and the travelling community.
Yes. Well, in a way, that is just a nice, not a nice...
I understand what you're saying, a perfect timed example,
timing example of how this, I think of it as a crudification of social discourse has happened. There was a time when people, the internet, before the internet, you'd be writing to the Times or the Examiner or the press, and it'd be some sort of a mechanism to screen out opinions. Now, anybody can become a keyboard warrior and basically say anything with no compunction. And really, we need to have a society where people are able to call things out, people are able to speak. We've seen loads of examples of how whistleblowers have been really... have had a dreadful experience. You think of the Women of Honour and all that has happened in the Defence Forces, that in a way certain things are not acceptable. Mm-hmm. society. We have to rub along with each other one way or the other. And in a way, we don't have to love each other. We don't have to, accept the existing policies or the political decisions, but we do have to frame our critique in a way which recognises that there's a thing called a society, and you can't. We also have seen with Trump.
But what we have seen recently, though, and any of you can come in on this, of course, as well, is what we have seen is some language used in the Dáil, right, that would be classed as conspiracy theory language, and I'm referring to Micheál Martin's comments on the ditch, for an example, right? Okay, so things can, language can be used in a very, very powerful way, and it can be used, and especially when you enjoy parliamentary privilege. So you've got the people that are happy to use parliamentary privilege to get their point across and come out with stuff that's disprovable, but at the same time, the general population introducing laws to effectively that, if they took a notion, could stop conversations on an awful lot of things. Is that one of your concerns, Emer?
Look, it would be. I suppose I was thinking last night when I was looking at it, what's going to happen to the Piers Morgan programme, because he has plenty to say on everything. As I said, something has to be done, and certainly bring the law in. But I do think amendments does have to be made for it, because people should not be fearful of speaking out and saying what they think. Education, monitoring the internet, and there's certain things should be done. And I suppose there should be, if somebody makes a statement, there should be monitoring of that to see what people say, and and that's the way it'll have to be tackled. Unfortunately, we can't gag everyone. Certain elements of people will still. I have to say, I'd be very go in there, and I'd always, if there was something I disagreed with strongly, I would respond to it too. So I'm probably one of those people. I'd like to think it wouldn't be derogatory to anybody.
When you see that, Sid, or hurting, intentionally targeting people with a prejudice based on their age, ability. I mean, some of the language, right? I mean, I think we can have the conversation about, say, the transgender issues, but some of the language that's being used. Now, there are people listening to this programme who are trans, or their children are, or what have you. Some of the language in that, we could still have that conversation, but some of the language is very, very offensive to people.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I do believe that if somebody opens a discussion and certainly opens it up to the public, that conversation then should be monitored, and everything in it, and everybody that responds to it. But taking it to a case of basically bringing in a legislation that stops people having an open debate. It's like something in the agricultural sector, and there's a statement released, and I have my opinion on it that might differ to the person who has released it. I should be allowed to respond to that. I shouldn't be afraid to respond to that. But should I be allowed to abuse them? Absolutely not. And that should be monitored.
I think, Liam, as well, this is a fine example that we see time and time again, in that, I think it'd be far better if these things were explained in greater detail, that there was some sort of a platform whereby, and I know there was a public consultation, I'm not on about that, but whereby things were explained in a little bit more detail, not something passed through the Dáil and then you sort of have to address each point as it's raised. Better communication on this, Liam, I think would help people form opinions better. We're not great at communicating in this country, I don't think, sometimes.
Well, I'm not so sure of that, Greg. Okay. Because I'm not up to date, to be honest with you, with the different stages that it has gone through. But I do know, as Emer has said there, just because you don't agree with somebody's opinion doesn't mean that you have to use some of the language that is used. And name calling, like the way some of them do, and things like that. And I think that the likes that has to be stopped. Mm-hmm. How do you stop it? No matter what we try to stop it, there's people going to be annoyed with it, that's going to say it's not correct. And as Professor said there earlier, make a start on it that can be changed. But I think we do definitely have to make an effort at it. Yeah. And that has been done at the moment.
And just before we move on, back to you, Pat, there's a text in here that's kind of interesting, because it says, all we have to do is look at the story of J.K. Rowling. All she did was defend women and is being accused of being transphobic. These hate laws would not stop J.K. Rowling with the arguments that she's made. Her arguments, well, if you don't, I mean, obviously, if you're on the receiving end of them, you might find them upsetting, but she doesn't use offensive language. She makes arguments that would not fall under this hate speech law. But then at the same time, they also say there'll be drag queens in every national school in the country and we won't be able to say anything, which is kind of conflating two different things, really, there. I think that's where the fear has been whipped up right across this nation.
Well, I mean, it's paradoxical that the writer sounds as if they're defending trial by social media, while at the same time criticising the legislative attempts to control it. You know, I suppose I want to come back to Micheál Martin and the Dáil, his attack in the ditch. I thought that was completely out of order. Completely unacceptable. And it was interesting, the ombudsman was on and basically said they were surprised that if somebody had an issue with the ditch, it wasn't reported to the press ombudsman, who could decide as to whether or not there was a case. That would have been the proper forum. I mean, I appreciate that we all lose the rag sometimes and people say things, that they'd be better off keeping their mouth shut. But it is important, I suppose, to name things, and to recognise when people are out of order, just as we should recognise it in ourselves.
Well, Liam, do you think that Taoiseach was justified, the Taoiseach, sorry, is now, was justified in his... No, I didn't hear what you said. I was correcting myself. Sorry, Pat. But, I suppose from his perspective, he and his party has been getting an awful lot of coverage, and it was his opportunity to fire one across the bows. No pun intended, actually, given the who helped create the ditch. Liam, did you back him in what he said?
I don't know. Does he have more information than what he's saying? Someone in his position to say what he said, I think, has more information than what we realise. I could be wrong on that, but to make a statement like that, even was under the privilege of the law, I think you need to have quite a bit of proof. And I do believe that there's more to it than what he exactly said, or he knows there's more to it. That's my own opinion on it. I could be wrong on that. But, when you have a particular media outlet attacking a particular party or two all the time, you just wonder, do they have a specific agenda against that party, or the set up for that particular reason? I'm not sure.
Okay, that's the voice there of Liam Blaney, and we also have Professor Pat O'Connor and Emer McGuinness with us. Back with more after we take this quick break.
Shrink their bill these days, Dunnes Stores gives you more ways to save with Double Savers. First, you'll save in the aisles when you fill your trolley with fantastic low prices across thousands of great products. Then you'll save again at the till with our 10.50 grocery vouchers. Shrink your bill today and get a trolley worth €54.66 for just €44.66. Double Savers from Dunnes Stores. Always better value. Terms and conditions apply. Vouching will be used in next grocery shop of €50 or more.
The fishermen working the seas off Ireland bring us a real bounty every day. Like Irish crab meat, low in fat and brim full of protein, omega-3 and essential vitamins and minerals. For lunch or dinner, Irish crab meat is a delicious shellfish you can buy cooked and ready to go in your supermarket or fishmongers. For great recipes online, like crab pasta with cherry tomatoes and basil, visit boardbia.ie/crab and make everyday meals amazing.
Highland Radio time checks with Expressway. Travel Route 32 from Letterkenny to Dublin when you book online and travel for less. Expressway, bringing you the time at...
All right, it's 28 minutes past 9. Some of your comments coming in here. Greg, there's a very simple philosophy re hate speech. Don't say or do anything to or about anyone that you wouldn't like to be done or said about yourself. That comes in from Mary. Now, my experience online, and I'm never offline, if the truth be told, is I don't really ever see what anything I would define as hate speech, except from anonymous accounts on Twitter. That's pretty much the only place I've seen stuff that would fall into those categories. A caller says the greatest levels of hate speech seem to be directed towards Christianity and others whose beliefs don't fit in with today's neo-pagan secular agenda. Another, the legislation has gone too far. We need to stand up and object to this before we are unable to say a word about anything that is said in our schools. Another caller believes just another means of controlling everyone, especially anyone who opposes government policies, and keep the power out of citizens' hands. Ignoring the outcomes of public consultations is proof of an agenda to me. What is the role of public consultations, Liam? Because we would have them on various topics. They're there to gauge public opinion, but like, say, for instance, a good example, and I don't mean this controversial, but a typical example might be, say, for instance, a variation of the property tax. I presume through the public consultation, loads of people don't say, right, keep it the same or raise it. They might say cut it. But at the end of the day, it's an executive decision to raise it. Issues like that. So public consultations in sort of the political sphere, they do have an influence, but they don't determine policy either, do they? It's just still muted there, Liam. Sorry.
Sorry, Greg.
It's all right.
They don't particularly determine policy, but they do give the people that has the role of changing policy an idea of what people think. But as far as I see it, and Donegal County Council, there's very little people get involved in public consultations. They don't seem to bother. But there is, at times, an effort made by a group with a particular agenda. We'll make an effort and look for people to go out and do a petition. And if somebody comes to you that you know and asks you to sign a petition, there's not too many of them say no. And then you have a public consultation that's leaning one way. Not all the people that signed it feel the same thing, but they feel hard to say no when it's put in front of them. And, those making the policy changes has to take that into consideration and has to take, I suppose, their own discussions with their own supporters into consideration as well. And at the end of the day, it's as far as the politics and then the council is concerned, it's the public representatives make the decision.
Just before we move on to this one, Emer, are you disappointed maybe that the opposition didn't, in whichever form that might be, by the way, I'm not talking about one particular party, did not sort of maybe try and draw this debate out a little bit more?
Well, as I said from the start, I do believe they didn't, because every one of them probably suffer at the hands of it every day. So that is why they quite happily let it pass through and did believe, and rightly so, that something had to change. But this broad view of bringing in this legislation to tackle an issue, it covers so many parts as freedom of speech, and people now been afraid to say what they think. People have been afraid to open up discussions. I think that we have gone far too far, and while people needed to be protected, I do believe if you open up a discussion like Micheál Martin and the dog, you have to be prepared. He should have been prepared beforehand. He knew exactly what he was going to say, and he went ahead and said it. So he is responsible. So anybody that opens up a discussion or a debate has to be prepared to answer on that, whether it's positive or negative. Mm-hmm. And I suppose that is why you see a lot of our politicians getting attacked, that they have to stand accountable for all these different legislations that come, whether we like them or not. And I am disappointed that more has, but I would like to think that all these, I suppose, this news programme, there's loads of them probably going on. I know it was on the Tonight Show last night, that there will be amendments made to it and there will be changes made to it. I believe there should be, and there has to be. People should be allowed to speak in a proper manner, obviously, on different topics.
Yeah, indeed. And I think the government should make proper efforts to explain this, to let people understand what's going on, what the process is, rather than sound bites or short interviews. I think there's more of a responsibility because I think it's never been more important that, yes, listen to programs like this. Yes, go on to websites or other platforms that, but people need to get to I think the public need to and should have learned, we should all have learned at this point, that you have to go to the source of the information as well, and not necessarily someone's interpretation or not with their political slant on it. Pat, would you agree that we really need to, rather than if I only consume sort of right-leaning or left-leaning media, for an example, I'm only going to sort of get one side of that story or one interpretation of it. I think it's on us to make sure that we go to the source material and have a look at it of ourselves too, and listen to different types of media and try and formulate our opinions like that, Pat.
Absolutely. I suppose to come back to your question on to Liam on consultations, public consultations, like in a way, I do sometimes think that they're simply an attempt to kick the can down the road, that they're simply an attempt to find cover, political. So in a way, if the result comes out that it suits the tenor of the times, then they'll be accepted. But I have been a bit irritated, for example, at the number of citizens' assemblies that are being created. Like, these are a very good idea, but the idea you have one and then you implement the recommendations before you go on to the next and the next and the next. It's a bit now like, it's becoming, we're trivializing these attempts. And I suppose it raises the question, are the concept of Teachta Dála, messengers of the people, are they messengers of the people or not? If we need endless paid consultants, citizens' assemblies, etc., well, do we need the number of TDs we have and local government officials?
Well, more are coming, so...
Exactly. Now, so in a way, of course, to come to your point, Emer's point, I completely agree that this, there is the possibility that people will feel silenced, and that is wrong. So in essence, it is a balance. I disagree with Emer on an awful lot of what she said, but I do think that things have reached such a pitch that things have to be done.
Right, okay. Emer, just a quick one from you and then around the table, so to speak. We are entering what's been sort of framed as a milk war, butter war. What's the feeling amongst the farming community that you've been receiving? Farmers in the dairy sector did really well last year, I believe, but now maybe the chickens are coming home to roost. What is the feeling on the ground as it relates to these milk and butter wars, the staples? It wouldn't be good, obviously. We all know the costs of your average household has increased. It's no different for running a dairy or enterprise like the dairy farmers. It's electricity, feed, fertilizer, fuel, all them costing up, and the fuel's going back down slightly. But they took a double and a triple whammy over, as you say, they did quite well, but all them things that increased on top of it. It's Tesco, Aldi, Lidl, I think, and SuperValu have decided to pull just for your listeners who don't know, have decided to pull, I think it's 40 cents off the price of their own label butter and 10 cents off the litre of milk. And Tesco, nobody would come at bar Tesco yesterday, the day before, and Tesco said they're doing it to help their customers with their household staple costs. But most of their customers would be farmers' wives, and no farmer is massively rich. I think farming, as I said, was always something that you were brought up in and that you progressed into. It's a way of life. Are they making massive amounts? No, they can't afford to take this loss. I think it was estimated, I read in the Farmers Journal, that a dairy farmer could lose up to 50,000 a year, and has done since January, and they can't afford to take that loss. I don't know. Is it the case too, Emer? Is it the case too, Emer, that there's a conflict going on here in that we can't really maybe necessarily do what we need to do in terms of climate commitments and also have cheap food? You know what I mean? Because I think there's a lot of people that believe the days of... No, I'm asking... This is a separate question to some extent. There's some people that feel that the days of cheap food are over, because if we are to sort of make it in... in new ways that are less impactful in the environment and what have you, that it can't be produced at the costs that people are used to.
Yeah, but it's the farmer that's taking the loss.
Yeah.
It's not the...
No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. In other words, that we expect cheap butter and milk at the shop, right? And we know it's the farmer getting the hit. But maybe we as consumers should not accept that, and then the farm, we shouldn't expect that, and then the farmer gets his fair cut. Do you get where I'm coming from? That's what I do get where I'm coming.
I do. I really do believe that we need somebody in charge of this. And, you know, we have no agri-food regulator. The same thing happened with the beef not a year or so ago. They can basically, the retailers and the factories can basically do what they want in this country. And they're not held accountable in any way, shape or form. And our government and our minister would say they cannot get involved in that process. But, you know, there has to be an agri-food regulator put in place straight away. You know, there was all these discussions and tables and brought in last year when we had the problem in the beef prices. But, you know, what have we got out of it? You know, here we are today now sitting talking about what's going to happen with the dairy farmers. And it's not right. When is it going to stop? You know, when everybody's gone out of business. Like, I read yesterday in the Farmers Journal, Jack Murphy wrote it. It's a great piece and people should probably go and read it. Basically, the government are talking about increasing, and we need to increase our tillage farmers, right? But on the offside of that, the cereal growers have all gone out of business. Why are they going out of business? Cost, and also they can't get the land because all the dairy farmers have it rented. So we're hypocritical in what we're doing. And this is what needs to be looked at. You know, there's loads of very intelligent people in our country that should be brought in around these tables to make these decisions that will have a positive impact on farming throughout the country. And you can't just ignore all the small farmers, you know. I do think we need an agri-food regulator. I do think we need them straight away. Probably it'll be too late for some of them. Them dairy farmers invested very heavily over the last few years in putting all these systems in place. They were told to increase and grow their businesses. And now, I think I watched Ear to the Ground one night, was a dairy farmer on. Now they're being told to bring it back again. No farmer knows where they're going at the minute. It's very hard to know what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And I would like to know, you spoke about the producers, Craig. What producers are we going to have in a few years if they can't have a sustainable business? Are we going to be importing everything that we eat? Why didn't we cut the cost, or why didn't Aldi and Lidl cut the cost of their pasta or something else? Why was it the Irish farmers? And they'll have that slogan across their shop windows. We buy and, you know, Irish farmers. But they're not supporting them. When that is where they decide.
Oh yeah, they'll have a leaflet out saying "Meet the Farmer," and they trade on the fact that they can show a picture of a local farmer. Liam, you know, I mean, dairy farmers particularly and wherever else are you know, feel that they're having to absorb this price war really, because the shops are trying to look after those that come in for the few bits, which is often butter and milk and what have you, and it's the farmer who is picking up the tab, it seems, Liam.
Yeah, well, the farmer is the price taker at the end of the day. And as Emer rightly said there, the factories and the retailers take whatever profit they can out of it and try and squeeze the farmer. And look, I think as Emer should well know at this stage that Minister Sharon McConnell has taken on, has gone through the Dáil, processing the Dáil at the minute, a food regulator, an agri-regulator, and what role that agri-regulator is going to have, I'm not sure yet, but hopefully we'll be able to make a change as far as the prices the farmers receive. But I do believe, and some say it's anti-competitive, but I do believe that there has to be a minimum price set on agri-food that can't be, the farmer can get no lower a price than what has been set. So, as I said, some say it's anti-competitive. I don't know if it is or not, but I think for farmers to survive, especially smaller farmers, that's important. Something like that happens. And the quicker this agri-regulator comes in to get set up and get started, I think the better. And I think it's positive news for the farmers.
Yeah, Pat, because there's us, the consumer, and then there is the farmer, and no one talks about all what goes on in between and all their profits and what have you. And they're insulated, you know.
I have mixed feelings on this. I mean, I'm from farming background. I want to note that farmers have never been backward in coming forward in organising themselves. I completely disagree with Emer, who said there are no such thing as rich farmers. There are. I mean, one of the really important things about agriculture is that there are two very clear groups, those that are huge really farming on an industrial scale and those that are part-time farmers. I get a bit impatient too as to the way the farming organisations manipulate the discourse. At times they want us to see that farming as an industry. At other times they want to see it as a kind of a sacred cow, the farm family, you know, and they oscillate between these two positions depending on which, you know, works best. So, for example, like there was no end of discussion about how farming was, you know, it was basically generating, it was a homegrown product that we were getting, all grass. Really, we had no environmental costs. And then when, the price of goods, butter has increased enormously in the past year. And when that was kind of, it wasn't, initially it was said it was transport costs and then it was clear it wasn't transport costs because the price of fuel was going down. And so it was fertiliser, but hello, there was no talk of the importance of fertiliser when they were talking about, grass-fed cows and lack of environmental impact. So, I do think there is a question as to whether or not, what is the breakdown of money, who's making the profit, right, in terms of the retailers and the factory owners versus the farmers. I think there's a fudge there. But I wouldn't be looking to the Farmers' Journal for an unbiased opinion on this. Sorry, Emer,
Well, in fairness, it could maybe talks into the last conversation we had. Perhaps it's the only legitimate voice of farmers, because in every other newspaper, they're held up as being parasites, the worst thing ever.
Only legitimate. I compare them, for example, to the childcare sector. Farmers have had a representative in Europe since Adam was a boy. They have been extremely effective in organising, for example, co-ops, representation on co-ops. They have been vociferous in government. The whole idea of a Department of Agriculture, in a way, there's no Department of Childcare. The childcare providers are seen as irrelevant, wiped out. So farmers are coming from the fishermen, another group that were sold down the river with the EU. Farmers have been doing very well. So we heard nothing when the
Come here, Pat. I'll tell you what. I don't know how long, Pat, you've been holding on to this, but my word, Emer, do you want a quick 30 seconds?
Pat, I'm sorry. All I have to say is you are not involved in the farming sector. You are not in Donegal, and you certainly, if you were in Donegal, you would not say that the farmers are rich and doing very well.
I said there was, in Meath, there's a very different story. I didn't say, small farmers, absolutely. But you said there are no rich farmers. Well, hello.
Okay, right. There might be some, but they're getting fewer and fewer. And you know something? You're talking about rich farmers. We need them farmers to produce what you want to eat. Your butter, your milk, your beef. And you said about the breakdown. I don't know about the breakdown of the butter, but I do know the breakdown of the beef. And the beef farmers are not getting, it's the factories that are making the money, and it's no different here with the butter.
Right.
The retailers are making the money. And I would be very, very firm on that belief.
Liam?
Just very briefly, and I understand what Pat is saying there. And when you're down the south of the country, and you see some of the large dairy farmers that's down there. And in fairness, the Farmers' Journal will say it. They will state it. Who is making the most money, the average income per year for dairy farmers, sheep farmers, all the farmers. Yeah. And you will see where some of the dairy farmers are doing fairly well. But there's huge input costs as well. And nobody knows behind the scenes what the borrowings is like for them farmers. It looks good in the front, out front. But behind the scenes, nobody knows what the real story is. But as far as Emer said, the farmers in Donegal, there's not very many rich farmers in Donegal.
All right.
I completely accept the location, Donegal, yes. No rich farmers there, but there are rich farmers in the country.
Okay, well, what we'll do is we better take a break. We'll be back with our final segment with our brilliant guests after this break. Back in about 3 minutes.
A public information day on the preferred option for Nadunov flood relief scheme will take place on Thursday the 11th of May in Miva Family Resource Centre from 4 p.m. until 8 p.m. This will be an opportunity for the public to view the option before it goes to the statutory planning process. Attendees will also be able to discuss the option in person with the project team and provide feedback. All are welcome and encouraged to come along anytime between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. No appointment is necessary.
If you're 70 or over, or have a weak immune system, it's time for your spring COVID-19 booster vaccine. Your spring booster will top up your immunity against COVID-19 for the months ahead, protecting you from serious illness or needing to go to hospital. You will be invited for another booster in the autumn to top up your protection for the winter months. Spring boosters are available until the end of May, so don't delay. Contact your local participating GP or pharmacy. Call our team in HSC Live on 1800 700 700 or visit hsc.ie to make an appointment at a HSC vaccination centre. From the HSC.
You know that guy I've been seeing?
Yeah?
Turns out my sister's been seeing him too.
Oh, really?
And I heard he's been seeing Siobhan at number 56. And Declan.
Your brother?
Yep.
Specsavers opticians and audiologists own their stores, so your care is their business, which can make them rather popular.
I've got something to tell you. I've got half an hour with them this afternoon.
Specsavers, your care is our business.
Hi, Paddy here at Shane Conley Cars in Donegal Town. Are you looking to upgrade your car? With Shane Conley Cars, you'll find makes and models for every budget. Great finance options, and we also accept trade-ins. Check out ShaneConleyCars.com or call in to us at Shane Conley Cars from Lonher Road, Donegal Town.
Go full Lidl for a summer of savings just like our customers.
We've a lot more in the fridge by the end of the week. Like, we're never running empty anymore. So it's fantastic to be able to budget and know this is what we're going to spend. And the kids can always throw in an extra few bits here and there. Like, our youngest girl throws and hides everything in the trolley.
Go on. Go full Lidl this summer.
It's the Right Price Tiles and Wood Flooring biggest ever sale. Up to 50% off everything in store. All tiles, all wood flooring, all outdoor slabs, cladding and bathware. Everything slashed in price. This sale is not to be missed. Right Price Tiles and Wood Flooring biggest ever half-price sale extended until Sunday.
Crawford Tiles and More Castlefin. Sale of the century. Massive yard and marquee sale starts Thursday the 4th of May to Monday the 8th of May. Vanity units, toilets, shower cubicles, trays, taps and much more. 60 by 60 rectified porcelain tiles starting from €12.99 a square yard. Wood floor effect tiles from $12.99 a square yard. Job lots available. 15% off all tiles in store for the weekend sale only. Cash and carry only. Take away on the day. That's Crawford Tiles Castlefin. Big yard sale the 4th to the 8th of May. 914342.
Okay, just a quick one, Emer, interested in your view on this. Is the farmer's voice becoming more fractured? Is it, because we are hearing of various different groups which are being formed, some with great attendance at certain events, and then, maybe talk of rural parties parties that would be established to fight for rural issues, which I believe would probably be farming. Like, is the voice of the farmer in lobbying becoming fractured to the point where it's a disadvantage? What's the feeling?
Okay, well, if you take it from my own look on it, a couple of years ago I might have been more actively involved in a lot of the different farm organisations and that were at the forefront of farming. I think people in general and farmers in general have become so busy and are struggling so much that we just don't have time to get involved with them. So the parties and the farming, all the different organisations are still there. And I believe that they're doing their role to the best of their abilities. I did the rural group which you spoke about. Do I see a need for it? Absolutely. I do believe that there should be. And I do understand why Michael Fitzmaurice has taken to do what he has done. When you have a particular party, regardless what that party is in government, you have to have an opposition party. And the reason you have to have an opposition party is you have to listen to everybody's concerns and what their opinions are. And it's like any decision you make anywhere, you have to listen to everyone around the table, because they might have a very good argument to put forward. And I feel that that's sometimes where we fall down. We go ahead, we implement new laws, we implement different, doesn't matter what it is, for the people, and we're not really taking into account how it's going to affect them people. And that is why, and I see what he's doing, and I understand what he's doing, and I suppose what he has been saying is he needs a voice. He can't do it all on his own.
Liam, the more opposition parties there are, the better, because, if you look at the polls, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and the Greens, very, very strong still. You know what I mean? They're if the government parties as a collective, there's no reason really why you could make a very strong argument for them being able to be returned after the next election. So the more splintered, in inverted commas, the opposition is, the better it is for those government parties.
Well, as far as farming organisations are concerned, and Emer would have been involved in this as well himself way back there when the beef plan movement started. And, that seemed to be a very good organisation that was, especially on the northwest and west coast and down the southwest. And some people try to take full control of it themselves, and it's happened in numerous cases, and the group splintered. And it's basically non-existent in this county now. Michael Fitzmaurice, as far as I remember, mooted this a number of years ago as well about starting up a new farming organisation. He didn't take it anywhere at that stage. Is he trying to give himself a bit of public support out there through the farming community before the next general election? I'm not so sure what the idea behind it is, but I do believe that there is enough farming organisations in the country as it stands. You're talking about opposition. There's plenty of opposition to each other. There's numerous amounts of farming organisations there. Unfortunately, some of them speak down the south of the country and different when they come up north. I was a member of an organisation myself, a farmer organisation. I left. I'm a member of another one now. But when they're up here, they tell us what the small farmer want to hear. When they're down the south of the country, they tell them what the larger farmer want to hear. And that is wrong. I think if you're going to represent a particular type of farmer, that you should be representing that particular type of farmer, not trying to represent them all. And that's what someone's trying to do. I think maybe that's what they're falling down.
Pat, quick comment from you.
I agree with Liam on this. I think the voice of farmers, the whole farming area is fracturing, and the extent to which a new organisation, whether it will be dominated by, for example, mountainy sheep farmers who are really on subsistence and have no anger, as I see it, as opposed to the very well-heeled industrial type farmers who are in very fertile land in the east. And the tendency would be, of course, that the dominant group would be those who have the time and the energy and the space to actually, as opposed to the people who are, an awful lot of farmers are part-time farmers, as Emer has implicitly said, that they themselves or their partners are working off the land. And so in a way, their voice is not going to be represented by those who have farm managers in situ and who are basically farming, 4,000 acres of very fertile land. So I think there is an issue of the rural versus the urban. That is a real issue. But in a way, focusing it on farmers, I think paradoxically, it could actually weaken the farming voice because it will highlight the splits within farming.
Well, I think the whole idea of it was not an organisation, it was a party per se that Michael Fitzmaurice, just so we're clear on that.
Yeah, it's in fairness, it's me. I've kind of blended the two together, and I've been sitting here watching it unfold in front of me, and I apologise. I apologise for that.
Yeah, it was a party, and he wanted political representatives forward to represent, and it was rural farmers and the rural areas in which he did. But as regards to the farming organisations, we most definitely have enough farmers.
All right. Emer McGuinness, manager of Donegal Mott, thank you. It's a pleasure as always, as it is Pat O'Connor, Professor Pat O'Connor. Brilliant to have you back on the show. Hope to see you again really, really soon. And last but not least, Cahirlock, Liam Blaney, thank you, by the way, for coming on as well. It's much appreciated. And have a lovely weekend, Liam. Good to see you. All right, we'll be back with more after the news and obituary notices. Stay right where you are.
On May 10th, grab your friends and go to the cinema to see this year's must-see romantic comedy.
Ever since I changed my number, someone's been sending me these texts.
You need to pursue this. Starring Priyanka Chopra Jonas, Sam Heughan, and Celine Dion.
Are you a fan of my music?
Yes.
Liar.
You won't want to miss Love Again, directed by Jim Strauss. Only in cinemas May 10th with Code 12A.
Fantastic value at Homeland Letterkenny Garden Centre this Saturday, 6th of May, with our Garden Super Saturday. Summer flowering bulbs and all roses, buy two, get one free. Heavy duty 6-seater picnic bench, only €179. Gas barbecue now only €179. Shop in store at Homeland Letterkenny with expert advice from our experienced team. Offers mentioned available this weekend only.
Getting married? BizPrint can take care of all your printing needs. Not just invitations, but save the date cards, order of service booklets, table cards, and so much more. See what's available at weddinginvites.ie or call 9177 955.
Jake's famous All-American Burgers has crossed the Atlantic and is now in Kelly's American Roadside Diner. Always tasty, always fresh, and so damn satisfying. Call in now for a taste of Southern hospitality at Kelly's American Roadside Diner.
Live, on air, online, and on the Highland Radio app. This is Highland Radio News.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock. Donald Kavanagh at the news desk. Donegal County Council has been told that bylaws need to be introduced at piers in Inishowen, which are set to become much busier on foot of changes introduced a week ago by the Marine Minister Charlie McConalogue. He announced that Bunagee, Glengad and Malin were being designated as EU entry ports for Northern Ireland registered fishing vessels. Well, Inishowen Councillor Johnny McGuinness told the Council's Fisheries Committee this week it's a welcome boost for the piers and he believes there will be significant demand for the service. However, he says it also raises serious safety concerns, which do have to be addressed.
The basic safety parameters that you'd expect from a working environment like that simply do not exist. This is something that has to be let out upon immediately, and we've got to be proactive in enforcing measures, and we can't do that without bylaws. A harbour without a bylaw is simply an ungoverned area, and it's a recipe for disaster.
Long waiting times are identified as the biggest challenge in accessing child and adolescent mental health services. That's according to a new report on children's mental health. 78% of children surveyed said they'd experienced some mental health difficulties. Pressures in school, body image and social media were among some of the reasons that led to the problems. Well, the Children's Ombudsman, Dr. Niall Muldoon, says children need to have proper mental supports available to them, particularly in the school setting.
I think that's a really important marker that the children themselves are saying that, because that's where they feel comfortable, it's where they're there every day, and it's where they feel that the service would be best provided. And I think that's something we need to move towards.
Donegal County Council is urging people to engage with them as plans for the €12.5 million Fort Dunree project near completion. The council says it wants to hear from those who use the site about their current usage and how that can be facilitated into the future. With more, here's Donna Marie Doherty.
Grant funding of over €9.2 million has been allocated by government, backed by €3.2 million in funding from the council. The project is intended to physically link the three elements of the Dunree site: Lough Swilly below the fort, the Promontory Fort and the High Guns Fort. Immersive heritage and cultural touchpoints will be provided, along with a new route that opens up the site, with viewing points via modern interventions such as an inclined elevator and interpretive installations. An online questionnaire has now been developed, and the council is encouraging people who use the facility to complete it. Meanwhile, a public consultation will be held in the Saldana Suite at Fort Dunree on Wednesday of next week. More details are available on our website, highlandradio.com.
The Taoiseach says the government remains committed to supporting the Ulster University campus at Miggy College in Derry. The issue was raised in the Dáil this week by People Before Profit's Richard Boyd Barrett. He said the issue was one that was raised with him by a number of people while he was canvassing in the region for his party's candidates in the forthcoming Northern Ireland local elections. He said promises were made but haven't been followed through. Well, Leo Varadkar told the Dáil the money is coming as part of the Shared Island Initiative.
The programme for government affirms the government's commitment to greater investment in the northwest and border regions. There have been a series of Shared Island Fund allocations. Institutions have also successfully applied for funding through the Shared Island Local Authority Development Funding Scheme and the North-South Research Programme. Specifically in the Northwest, the Government is working to move ahead this year with our commitment under the New Decade New Approach Agreement to capital investment at Ulster University's campus in Derry to expand provision for young people in the region.
While other countries will get warmer due to climate change, Ireland is likely to get cooler. According to a new report into Ireland's ocean climate, a weakening of the Gulf Stream will drive down temperatures here. The warm breeze is predicted to decrease by 30%. That'll drive down water temperatures and attract large cold-blooded fish into our seas. Co-author of the report, Dr. Gerard McCarthy, has been outlining what this might mean for the Irish climate.
Now, if the situation happens that the Gulf Stream system weakens dramatically, as it potentially could, then that leads to even and potentially a slight relative cooling in Ireland, but also an increase in that storminess and knock-on effects for precipitation, particularly in the summertime.
And a 20-year-old man arrested in Derry on Wednesday following the seizure of suspected Class B and Class C drugs has been released on police bail to allow for further inquiries. The man had been initially arrested on suspicion of driving without a licence or insurance, and suspected drugs, drug paraphernalia and a quantity of cash were recovered during subsequent inquiries. With a forecast, Annette Erin tell us rain will linger for a time this morning with sunny spells and showers following. Some of those showers will be heavy and possibly thundery in the afternoon and early evening. Spot flooding is possible in some places. Top temperatures today 14 to 18 degrees Celsius in light to moderate southerly breezes. And that's Highland Radio News. We're back with news headlines again at 11 o'clock. Until then, from the news team, have a very good morning. The obituary notices for this Friday morning, the 5th of May. The death has occurred of Philip McCallion, Mintahala, Illies, Ballymagan, Buncrana. His remains are reposing at his home. Funeral from there on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock for 11 o'clock Mass in St Mary's Church, Cockhill, with burial afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. The funeral can be viewed live on churchservices.tv. The death has taken place of Bella Gill, Nae McGee, St Columkill Village, and formerly of Lagahurry, Isle of Doe, Clonmany, and Derrybeg. Her remains will repose at St Columkill Village Oratory from 2 o'clock until 8 o'clock today. Funeral from there tomorrow afternoon at 1:30, going to St Mary's Church, Clonmany, for 2 o'clock Requiem Mass. Burial afterwards in the new cemetery. Family flowers only, please. Donations in lieu if desired to St Columkill Village, care of any family member or Comiskey Funeral Directors. The funeral mass can be viewed live on churchservices.tv. The death has taken place of Sister Margaret Mary McGreed, St Catherine's Convent of Mercy, Ballyshannon, and formerly of Tattisala, Omagh, County Tyrone. Removal from St Catherine's Convent of Mercy, Ballyshannon this morning, going to St Patrick's Church for Mass of the Resurrection at 11 o'clock, with interment afterwards in the Abbey Asseroe Cemetery. Family flowers only, please. Donations in lieu if desired to the St Patrick's Church Restoration Fund, care of Patrick McKenna, Funeral Directors. Sister Margaret Mary's funeral mass will be streamed live on churchservices.tv. The death has taken place of James Tees, Durable, Manor Cunningham. Family, friends and neighbours welcome to his niece Hilary Thompson's home at Durable, Manor Cunningham. Funeral in Hilary's home this afternoon at 2:30, followed by burial in Rafo Presbyterian Burial Ground. The death has occurred of Bernard Ward, Burton Port. Funeral Mass this morning at 11 in St Columba's Church, with interment afterwards in Belcrich Cemetery. Family flowers only, please. Donations in lieu if desired to Dunloe Community Hospital. The death has taken place of Jimmy Bradley, Munya, Linsford, Buncrana. Funeral from Porter Funeral Home, Minagori this morning at 10:30, going to Star of the Sea Church, Desertegany for 11 o'clock Requiem Mass, with burial in the adjoining graveyard. And the death has taken place of John McGrory, 9 St Oliver's Avenue, Buncrana, formerly of Drummondura. Funeral from his late residence this morning at 10:15, going to St Mary's Church, Cockhill, for 11 o'clock Requiem Mass with burial in the adjoining graveyard. The funeral mass can be viewed on churchservices.tv. For more details, including any family health guidelines for wakes and funerals, please go to highlandradio.com.
Joe Brawley's genetic makeup drove him to lift championships, collect all-stars, and now informs his cutting-edge opinions. GAA is in Joe's DNA, and it's in ours at Independent Sport. Read Joe's microscopic GAA coverage in the Irish Independent and Sunday Independent. Irish Independent. Up close and independent.
With all the stories that matter across the Northwest, it's Greg Hughes on the 9 to Noon Show on Highland Radio.
All right, hopefully you enjoyed the last hour of the show there. Thanks again to Emer, Pat and Liam for their contributions, and also thank you so much for what you have been sending in. I'll get to that in a moment. We were going to be talking about RTE's decision to broadcast the coronation of Britain's Charles as king. There's been quite a bit of opposition to that. What do you think? I mean, it's across every UK channel, British channel, but RTE are broadcasting it. There are people that believe it is an attempt to launder the reputation of the monarchy. Will RTE also now be broadcasting the coronation of other kings and queens across Europe and the world? What do you think? Do you welcome, because your views are the most important of all, don't you know? Do you welcome RTE broadcasting 4 hours of coverage of the coronation, or do you think they should put Judge Judy on and Dr. Phil instead? Okay, let's get to some of your comments here. Have farmers ever made money? Since I can remember, they've been complaining if the job doesn't pay, get out, they say. Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael members have no issue with media when they are pro-government, Independent and RTE, for example. Government parties need to concentrate their efforts on delivering for the good of the country and not obsessing over Sinn Féin. The government conducted a poll on introducing hate speech laws. 70% of the public were against new laws, but the government and Sinn Féin ignored the public by pushing it through. Kind of right. What actually happened was there was a public consultation, as there is with an awful lot of things. 70% of the submissions either were against it or had concerns with how far the laws reached. So it wasn't necessarily that they were against it or voted against it, or it wasn't a poll. It was a public consultation. But it's still not insignificant, but just facts matter. Does this mean that those who constantly knock and mock the Catholic Church can be taken up for hate crime now? Well, if people make derogatory comments based on someone's Catholicism, and it's not just that it upsets you, right? This is not about being upset. This is about it being properly, truly offensive. Well, then presumably so. This is all due to people trashing the government, saying what they think of them, which is useless, believes this caller. Another, dress it up whatever way they want, but I think it's all about silencing people. I have to agree, childcare facilities are glorified babysitters and so heavily legislated. That's off the back of a comment from Professor Pat there. Another caller says, we need to protect our farmers, we need to protect our fishermen, we need to protect our freedom of speech, or we'll have nothing left. Again, we don't have freedom of speech here, is the point I was trying to make. It's not enshrined in a constitution. I think we're heavily influenced by what happens in America and what's governed there. And someone made the comment offline. It's also about this conversation about our neutrality. Again, we don't have neutrality as such. We have a policy, right? But it's not in our constitution, nor is freedom of speech. You have the freedom of expression, but that does not transcend the rights of others not to be offended by what you have to say. And that is the way it is now. How can a store decide price and farmers lose? Not right. Well, that's the situation, it seems. Another caller says, should people not expect cheap food? ? That's a question I posed. Not an opinion, by the way, a question. And then the caller goes on to say, should we be robbed every day at the shops? Pay the farmers properly and the stores will still make a profit. And if they don't like it, they can close. Why is the government keeping big business happy all the time, but not the people, they say? Committee of Agriculture are long overdue to do a study of each county to figure out how to be most beneficial to the people of the country. The day small farmers go out of business will be a sad day. They keep the land and play a big role in communities. Another caller says, Greg, what is all this money they used for Fort Dunree? Why is it not used to build houses for people or for the people who live in falling down houses? This is all wrong, how this money is being spent. I think people's lives should come first. Again, though, and I said this yesterday, not going ahead with Fort Dunree doesn't mean a single house would be built. There is a fund for house building that the government can't actually spend. There's been a massive underspend in consecutive years in the housing Department of Housing. So not progressing Dunree or not progressing that development in Ballybofey, which was mentioned yesterday, does not lay one single block. The money is there for housing. They just have to figure out a way. They would argue that they have already and they're working on it. They have to figure out a way to deliver these houses. As I say, it's not money coming from housing going to Fort Dunree. They can't spend the money allocated for housing as is. Why should poor working families who pay for everything, subsidised farmers who pay no tax, have their kids educated for free? If they're not making a living, sell up and get a job, pay their taxes and contribute to society. Just because you're left a parcel of land, society should not have to pay to keep your upkeep. I don't think everything you stated about farmers there is true. Farmers, of course, pay tax. Everybody pays tax. And I know many farming families can't afford to send their kids on to education. So I also know that not to be strictly true. A lot of stuff that we get in the shop and pick up off the shelves are produced by farmers. And the multinationals are making a fortune. The factories are making a fortune, and your neighbour is the one that's struggling. Everybody else is making money, but the farmer is struggling. That's not fair, is it? Would it not be better? You could still get your milk and butter at the same price, but if farmers then were paid a decent price for the production of these products, rather than some company based in Germany or Britain or elsewhere making massive profits. You know, I don't think us, the consumer, should turn against farmers or vice versa when there's so many faceless people and companies in the middle that are making an absolute fortune. Why do we fight against each other rather than focusing our attention on the common enemy? Now, I use that word because it's the only words that fit. I'm not saying they are our enemy, but do you understand maybe where I'm coming from? Right, okay. Listen, thanks for all your calls and comments. Keep them coming in to us. Loads coming up on the show over the next couple of hours. Michael and Fanula will be joining us just after 11 as well, which should be a bit of fun as we ease our way into this bank holiday. It's not a... Why did they even say bank holiday? I meant to say May, into this May weekend. All right, let's take a break.
The county's #1 talk show, The 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio.
It's time for NCBI Bingo on Highland Radio.
It's Friday the 5th of May. You're playing on the yellow sheet. The reference number is S10. It's game number 18. The numbers are 29, 35, 63, 25, 17, 50, 13, 55, 47, and finally 53. Phone your claim to 9104833 before 8 tonight, leaving your name, contact number and the name of the shop where you purchased your book, and we'll call you back the next working day. Get all your NCBI bingo information at highlandradio.com.
Hyundai has just made history, with Hyundai Ioniq 6 winning World Car Design of the Year, World Electric Car of the Year, and overall World Car of the Year 2023. Becoming the first brand ever to achieve all three prestigious accolades 2 years in a row, after Ioniq 5's triple win in 2022. History made by the same brand behind Tucson, Ireland's best-selling car. Hyundai, a class apart.
Your local dealer is Dibbers Hyundai, Canal Road, Letterkenny. Call 9122 600.
Celebrating 50 years of rugby and the official opening of their new changing rooms, Inishowen Rugby Club will host Ulster versus Munster Junior Clubs Men's Interprovincial at their Moss Road Rugby Grounds, Carndonagh on Saturday 6th of May. Kick-off at 2:30. Gates open at 1:30pm. Barbecue, refreshments and entertainment, all are welcome on Saturday, May 6th. See Inishowen Rugby Club Facebook page for more details. This ad is kindly sponsored by Neil Doherty Jewelers.
Enjoy summer with Home Store and More. We have everything you need for garden living. Bring your garden to life with our great range of garden furniture. We've rattan corner sets, dinner sets and much more. Like our Florence Corner sofa set for €749. Dine in style with the Amelia 7-piece garden set, only €299. And cook up a storm with our 6-burner gas barbecue, only €399. Visit us in-store or shop online at homestoreandmore.ie. Make your garden your sanctuary. Home Store and More. A happy home.
Donegal County Council is seeking applications for the position of part-time retained firefighter in the Donegal town, Killybegs, Dunlow, Gidore, Falcarra, Milford and Glencolmkill Fire Brigade areas. Application forms and information booklets are available on the recruitment section of the council's website, donegalcoco.ie. The closing date for receipt of completed application forms is 12 noon on Monday, 15th of May, 2023.
OK, welcome back to the programme, and it's a good morning now to Senator Eileen Flynn. Senator, good morning to you.
Good morning, Greg. Thanks for having me on the show this morning.
No, it's good to have you on, Eileen. I wish we were speaking in different circumstances. You've publicly spoken of a recent experience you had whilst in Dublin. What happened?
I got a taxi back from the city centre, and it was to Ballyfarmit. Now, Ballyfarmit is a working class area in Dublin, and the taxi driver says to me, "Okay, have you got money?" I said to him, "Of course I have money." He took me out to Ballyfarmit. When he realised I was going to a Horton site, he stopped about 200 yards away from the site and said, "Oh no, I'm not going in there." He said, "There's caravans in there." Now that's all he said. So I said to him, "Okay, I won't pay you." And he said, "No, you have to pay me." So he said he's going to call the guards, and I said, "Actually, you're committing the crime, so I called the guards." And I did call the 999 emergency service, and I got through to a man that said to me, "Actually, this is a waste of Gardaí's time." And I was trying to explain to him, "No, it's not. He's been, in my opinion, he's been discriminating against that. He wouldn't take me into where I needed to go." So the operator said to him, "Why won't you take this woman to her home? This is what you're meant to do it by law." And when I told the operator I was a public representative, he did change his tune. He was very nice, and basically the taxi driver wanted the operator to stay on the phone while he dropped me to my house, and the operator did stay on the phone, and he apologised when I got out of the taxi. The operator did say, "I'm very sorry you said you had to experience this," because he could hear how upsetting it was, you know. The thing is, Greg, that the majority of taxi drivers are absolutely lovely, and they will drive into Horton sites. Unfortunately, this is an everyday occurrence for members of the traveller community, is that where people refuse to even like takeaways, delivery services that won't go into sites. And, you know, I do understand that in some places our people may have had somewhat negative experience with members of the traveller community, and that I totally get that. Like, people have negative experience with the settled community and people in different areas as well. But to target every single person with the one brush and to act out in discriminatory, like in a sense to say, "No, I'm not going in there because it's full of caravans," that's inappropriate and shouldn't happen in today's world. Now,
do you think no, we'll get to that actually, Eileen, because I'd be very interested in your views on that. In relation to this taxi driver, do you believe he was ignorant to, you know, the realities of the fact that he could have just dropped you in, or do you think it was an actual prejudice? If you know, do you get where I'm coming from? Like, do you think he was like? Do you think he maybe has been educated through this process, or maybe he actually has his views have been strengthened because of what's happened?
I speak about this a lot, that we are all prejudiced. Every single person is prejudiced. But when you act out in your prejudice and say, you know, "I'm not doing this because like you're a member of the traveller community or because there's caravans," well then that's what becomes discrimination, you know. So he was very blunt. Now, he didn't even mention the name, "I'm not going in there because you're a traveller." He said, "I'm not going in there because there's caravans," and that it was a Horton site. And again, I could totally understand, Greg, the fear, and fear is out there, the fear of the unknown, not known communities. This man has probably never met a traveller before in his life, but that unfortunately wasn't my fault, you know. And then I am absolutely, like, even since I was a child, experienced discrimination with people not delivering to sites. And for me, really, it's about challenging that. Who takes responsibility for it? Like, should the guards have come out and said, actually, you know, for what you're after putting her through, she doesn't need to even pay the fee, you know, because again, there's nobody held accountable. And when we, like, now, hate crime and discrimination and racism, they're all, like, they're similar, but they're very, very different. And I want your listeners to understand that. And I understand there's a lot of people who are fair and saying, oh, we won't have the freedom of speech. But people really need to know free speech is not racism, it's not discrimination, it's not storing up hatred, planning to burn a traveller home, saying that actually travellers are going to be moving in here, so we're just going to put light to the building so that they can't move in. That's hate. That's absolutely hate, and it's storing up hate. So, like, people really, like, I'm far from a person who says people should be put to jail because of committing a hate crime. People need to be educated that it's not okay to store up hatred. It's not okay to not like people because of their sexuality, because of their background, and being pure hateful. You know, the transphobia, the homophobia, going out and attacking people, spitting at people's faces. I know of a Muslim woman walking over Halfpenny Bridge. Now, this is going back 15 years ago, and I've been campaigning for hate crime legislation more than the last 12 years. I think now with what's going on in society, this hate crime legislation is long overdue.
Okay, and I want to ask you another question about that. But you know, by speaking out of your experience, you knew perhaps, Eileen, what was coming. Yeah. And that would be effectively you setting yourself up as a target on social media for anti-traveller abuse. Very, very strong language. You know, people feel that is a space, particularly on Twitter, whereby because you have highlighted this issue, that they can target you with offensive names, stereotypes, and what have you.
But the whole thing is, I'm going to be targeted anyway, because, you know, here a few months ago, I used the word Worcester. Things is getting worse for refugees, and I got so much abuse on social media. It wasn't because of my language. What happened was the issue, and people are going to try to pull you down all of the time. But it's really about, now don't get me wrong, I do have my bad days where I could sit and feel sorry for myself and say, why the fuck did I even get myself in doing this? Is at the end of the day, when you have two young kids to look after, when you want to live your life as well. But the reality is, you know, it needs to be challenged, and it is tough to challenge it. But the thing is, you're going to have haters out there one way or the other.
Yeah, I think there's a responsibility too, though, not just you, but other people, and maybe those not directly affected by it, to call it out as well.
Yes, but see, we all need to do it in a very careful and a strategic way as well. Like, racism is racism, and we need to call it out. And if I was to sit back and say absolutely nothing, now I haven't even read half the comments on social media, but I get that anyway. Because I'm a member of the traveller community, and that's the harsh reality of it. And people don't think, and it's so easy, Greg, like, you know yourself, for being a journalist, like, people can just attack you, and they don't have to take responsibility for it, and it's so easy. These are people who cover their faces. These are people who I think, and I believe, are actually ashamed of themselves. They won't put their real name on social media. They're just looking for anything to attack people who they see is less than them.
Okay. Finally, and I know you're busy, but just in relation to these new hate speech laws, there are people, a number of people, I don't know how great they are in number, who feel that this is designed to protect politicians, to stifle debate so that we can't talk about issues, social issues like transgenderism, for example, or immigration. There are people who believe that these hate law speeches are designed to stop that type of conversation so that governments can push their agendas through. What do you say to people who have that view?
I do think there's a fear, and I also think, like we see it in America, we see it all over the world right now, the rise of the far right, and, I think they're spreading misinformation again. Now, I do understand people's concerns, and what we're trying to do as a civil engagement group in the Shannock is address those concerns. We all have the right to be able to have discussions, as we did open discussions around even the reproductive health care, around repealing the 8th Amendment, and it's okay for people to be educated. And I think now more than ever we need to educate people, but also we need to be very mindful that, we have to look for equality for all. And I think a lot of the time, Greg, we forget about the ordinary working class person as well. Like, we have to be looking at adding a 10th ground of discrimination, and I do think your economic background as well needs to be added onto them, the 9th ground, to make it 10 grounds of it. And I think conversation is key, education, because when we know better, we do better.
Okay, good stuff, Eileen. Your hands are full there. Who's in the background?
Sorry, Billy.
Billy, all right.
We're here.
Say hello to Billy for us, will you?
At an exchange.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Greg. Thanks a million.
All right, take care. See you, Billy. See you, Eileen. Thanks very much indeed. Senator Eileen Flynn there, 086 60 25,000 WhatsApps and texts to that number. A caller says, I'll not be watching the coronation, but I think it should be broadcast and people should have the choice. It's time for change, they say. There are young people who want to get on with their neighbours. All you have to do is switch it off. Okay, now, I'm going to take a break, right? We're going to play a bit of Bruce Springsteen on the coming out of the break, because lots of people from this area are going down to see Bruce. So pick the song. I'm going to take this break, and the first few of you texting in, which Bruce Springsteen song do you want? I'll play that coming out of the break.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook, and at highlandradio.com.
Ready for a change or upgrade? Think Seat. With our wide range of award-winning Seat SUV, including the bold crossover Arona, the family favourite Ateca, or the spacious 7-seater Tarraco. All vehicles come with great offers on finance and PCP options. Book a test drive today by calling DMG Motors on 074 9721 396 or visit dmgmotors.ie. Choose your new 231 Seat with confidence with a visit to DMG Motors, Clare Road, Donegal Town.
Why did I choose Ulster? I wanted a university who could give me the biggest possible future, but also the best possible time now. Somewhere I could make friends and have good crack, but also to set me up for the best job possible. I'm planning to take up one of the study abroad options, and then my big plan is to specialise in media law in LA. But for now, NI has one of the lowest student living costs in the UK. So, night markets, here I come.
Learn why over 30,000 students choose Ulster at ulster.ac.uk/go north. Apply now for this September.
Connect Hearing is open for free hearing tests. Our audiologist is available Monday to Friday for wax removal services at our Letterkenny Clinic in the Courtyard Shopping Centre. We also offer a home visit for those who are unable to visit us. Our hearing is our social sense. Are you finding hearing more of a challenge? Call Ursula today on 07491 13296 to make an appointment. Good hearing helps us to connect to our family, friends and loved ones. Connect Hearing, connecting you to life.
Okay, here's the winning track. If you're watching us online, we will be going dark for about 3 minutes for copyright issues, but stay right where you are because we've got a couple of interesting guests coming up between now and 12. That's Bruce Springsteen and Dancing in the Dark. Good luck if you're heading down to see him. Okay, let's introduce our next guests. Tia Gallagher and Rihanna Doherty, students at Ross's Community School, Dunlow. Good morning to you. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
And also Alicia O'Hart, a teacher. How are you getting on, Alicia?
Not too bad. Thanks, Greg. Thank you.
Excellent. Now, we had the students on a few months ago talking about their project, Menstrual Waves, which highlighted the lack of education in schools regarding the menstrual cycle. And congratulations, because he's had great success with the project, and you won the National Silver Award, a massive achievement. Well done to all of you. Tia and Rihanna, how pleased are you with this recognition?
Really happy. Awesome.
Yeah, okay. So talk to us about this project. Just give us a quick run through, Tia or Rihanna, whichever of you want to do it. Well, one of you is going to have to. I'm just going to say Tia then. Talk to us about it. Talk to me about the project, Tia.
What? Talk to you about that. Oh, sorry, we just can't hear you very well.
Oh, sorry. Okay, that's no problem. That's my fault. So talk to me about the Menstrual Waves project, Tia.
Well, we started it when we were brainstorming for an idea, of course, and it was like one of the general kind of ideas that we could do something along the lines of, and then we researched more and more, and were shocked to see that there were little to no learning outcomes in any of the SPHE, home ec or science syllabuses, and the ones that they are in are either extremely limited or you can choose to do it. And so we decided then, when we found that out, that we were going to do the project on it. And it was kind of slow to start to get in contact with as many people as we could. And then we were on Highland Radio, and it kind of went up from there.
Excellent. I'll tell you, you're saying all the right things, Tia. Rihanna, you've produced a book that helps women and understand the menstrual cycle, the impact it might have on them. It explains how they might feel, things that heretofore might be, not understood. And it's a booklet that you hope will be widely available, I presume.
This is the booklet here. It's
brilliant.
We felt that it would be more personal to the young girls themselves if we just made a booklet instead of having it as an app, for instance, because it's like diary, journaling. That's just very much more personal than apps, because the apps collect information from you, and this is more. Sorry.
I think I think that's yeah, no, it's fine. You're doing great, by the way, so just relax. Rihanna, I think that's a really good point in this day and age, that an app would just blend into the home screen of everything else, isn't it? Whereas this is something that's tangible and you can pick up and read, and ironically more likely to get your attention and feel more personal, just like you've been outlining.
Everything's on apps these days, and it's just getting a bit too digitized. So like Rihanna was saying, for them it's like a sacred thing to sit down in their own wee space, and like writing in a diary, to be able to track how they're feeling on that day, to really sit down and kind of listen to their bodies and write down their mood, their energy level, how they're feeling, if they have any symptoms, and track other things to do with their periods as well. That can be very helpful. Yeah, and I think, I presume this is, there's no harm fellas educate themselves in this area as well. I mean, obviously not going to be filling out the booklet as such, but to have a better understanding of what's happening. Tia, would you agree? Yeah, I definitely think that it's a very important thing, because obviously it affects everyone, whether you are a boy or a girl, because most boys would have either a daughter or a wife, or at least a mum or a sister, and it's it's quite personal to everyone in that sense, and I think that everyone needs to know a lot more about it to understand it. Yeah, Alicia, what was the Croke Park experience like? For me, sorry? Yeah, any of yous. I'm just trying to give everyone a chance to speak. Well, do you want to talk about the Croke Park experience? How did you find that? We found it to be amazing. Yeah. It was so much fun. I think when they're working on their project, they're in a room once a week, and they don't realise that this is a countrywide thing, and that there's schools from all over the country working so hard as well. And I think when they've seen the amount of students, and that was only 40 projects picked out of the country, so you're talking 700 and something projects. So when you've seen 40 other schools and all the amazing work that they did, and, you know, for our project to be up there with them, you know, was amazing. And then they presented to a range of judges, and you find that nerve-wracking, but good. And
is it a wee bit like Dragon's Den, that kind of a thing, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, and
scary.
then we got a phone call to go and present again to another round of judges, and we knew then that they were being considered for the top 3 prizes, bronze, silver and gold. So even to get that, like, we were shocked when we seen the calibre of the other projects. So they got to present again to new judges, and I think he's found that one more difficult.
Yeah.
And I just want to tell about the moment you were crowned silver, second in the country.
Well, like, they kind of hinted towards, like, our project being second, and as soon as they said the name, we just jumped up. Yep. We were screaming, we ran right up and got the trophy.
I've never seen them run as fast.
And I think, do you know what's good about this is that it's really meaningful as well. I mean, it's fantastic to have that experience. Okay, it's you'll never forget that sense of when your name was announced and you won, but also you've produced something that's very useful once the dust has settled. Do you know what I mean? That people will be able to use and access. And the more people, I think you'd agree, Rihanna, the more people that get their hands on this, the better, because it gives meaning to how one's feeling. And there's nothing worse than you feel something or something's changed and you don't know what it's about, and you search for answers and you attribute it to something else. This will help people through for young people already a very difficult part of their lives. It might just make some sense of some feelings that they have.
Yeah, because even like when the girls are explaining it to some of the teachers and to even their like older friends who have been obviously having the menstrual cycles for years, they don't know a lot of the information and are surprised by it. So, you know, they're educating a lot more than just the students, which is brilliant. Yeah. And they've also done parents' information booklets as well that they've delivered and are in the process of delivering to local primary schools for them to give out to their 4th, 5th and 6th students as well, so that the parents can have a little bit more information.
And another thing that it's doing is normalising a conversation that I don't know, Tia and Rihanna, but perhaps maybe, Alicia, you might have slight more of an insight into this, is that this is a conversation that would have been completely taboo not very, very long ago. You merely couldn't say the word period was almost a swear word, and it's not that long ago. So I think
there's still a lot of language has to be changed. You know, like if you look at any of the TV advertisements or anything, when they're talking about period products, they're still calling them sanitary products. They're saying basically that this is something that's unclean. You know, they need to change that just to period products. This is just something that happens to girls all throughout their lives. It's very normal, and they need to update that language to be more.
Yeah, well so the adverts that attract often most of the complaints are those for period products. So we perhaps still have quite a way to go. But anyway, listen, nothing but congratulations to you, Rihanna Doherty. Congratulations, Rihanna. And also to you, Tia Gallagher. Well done. It's an amazing achievement and a brilliant experience as much as anything else. And Alicia O'Hart, teacher as well. Listen, thank you so much for keeping us informed. And it's great to get you back on and to celebrate the success. Well done, all of you.
Thank you very much.
All right, bye-bye. Enjoy the rest of the day and your weekend, okay? Tia, Rihanna and Alicia there, okay? We'll be back with more on the 9 till noon show in just a few moments.
Pneumo is short for pneumococcal disease. Like the common cold, pneumococcal infection is spread by close contact through coughing and sneezing. Invasive pneumococcal disease is a very serious illness. Of those who develop an invasive infection, 1 in 4 will get pneumonia, 1 in 4 will get meningitis, and 1 in 10 will die. If you know pneumo, you'll know that people aged 65 and older or people with chronic conditions like diabetes, asthma or heart disease are at risk. Know pneumo. Know how to protect yourself. Talk to your GP or pharmacist today or visit pneumo.ie. Brought to you by MSD, supported by Diabetes Ireland and CRE.
Beat your personal best with top brands and premium running footwear from Michael Murphy Sports in Letterkenny. There's new arrivals from Asics, New Balance, Brooks, Adidas and Under Armour in a range of structured and neutral styles. There's also free next day delivery on orders over €85 at michaelmurphysports.ie.
Celebrating 50 years of rugby and the official opening of their new changing rooms, Inishowen Rugby Club will host Ulster versus Munster Junior Clubs Men's Interprovincial at their Moss Road Rugby Grounds, Carndonagh on Saturday, 6th of May. Kick-off at 2:30. Gates open at 1:30 p.m. Barbecue, refreshments and entertainment all are welcome on Saturday, May 6th. See Inishowen Rugby Club Facebook page for more details. This ad is kindly sponsored by Neil Doherty Jewelers.
Okay, a caller says far right seems to be one of the most effective name calls to stifle certain opinions that might create an obstacle to particular agendas or particular groups. That's not terminology we generally use. It certainly doesn't come out of my mouth. I don't think it's constructive at all. Just like to say, the farming is a 7-day week, 365 days per year. There is nobody to phone in sick or no holiday pay or those extras. But if we didn't do what we do with the subs, the people would just have to live on water and weeds. And all food is provided by farmers, says another. Everyone needs the farm to survive. The grants farmers get are to subsidise the food. If they weren't getting these grants, your food would be double the price. That comes in from James in Fannin. Thank you very much, James. Right, okay. Is Noel Cunningham with me? Noel, good morning. Hello, Noel. Can you hear me? No, unfortunately, Noel is unable to hear me. I'm going to kick him out and then get him back in again, just in case there's a problem with our setup here. Right, okay, more comments, though, as we do so. Why is the chaos at our hospitals, ED, not making the national news except locally? No longer a trolley crisis, as they seem to have run out of trolleys. The hospital crisis is now taken as norm, just like the housing crisis and homelessness has become. Unfortunately, that's is how it feels. It should be much bigger a deal, I think, especially as we heard those stories yesterday. Noel, can you hear me?
I can indeed.
It's Greg here at Highland Radio. Noel Cunningham, everybody knows Noel, of course. The longest reigning ever Donegal Person of the Year. He no longer has that crown, but we still love you nonetheless, Noel.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that. How are you getting on?
I'm doing fantastic. Okay, now we put it out there, Noel, about RTE's decision to televise the coronation of Britain's King Charles. And to be honest, it's a mixed bag. Some people happy enough with it, others not so. What's your view? And we'll talk more about the whole pomp and ceremony of it, but RTE opting to broadcast it, what's your views on that?
I think they are doing absolutely the right thing. The viewer numbers tomorrow will prove that. You know, at the end of the day, you know, they are our biggest trading partner. We have made a huge contribution to Britain as an Irish nation. A lot of us went to England to work and were treated with great respect. A lot of the older generation who grew up with a kind of slightly strange relationship, you know, love-hate relationship with the royal family, will tune in and enjoy every moment. And apart anything else, we will not see this again in a lot of our lifetimes, nor have we seen such a spectacle on our screens, because the Queen reigned for so long.
It's about 5 or 6 years ago since you met Charles and Camilla during their visit to Donegal Town. I think I've got the timeline. Maybe it's longer than that. Maybe it's much longer. I don't know. I'm terrible at times. You spent some time with them. What were they like as people?
Utterly charming. The Queen Consort is a delightful lady, good company, very earthy, and I know that the situation around sort of they're getting together and all that has always and will always be sort of subject to various debate. But I found her delightful. She treated people on the Diamond in Donegal and everywhere she went on her visit here with great respect. He is fascinating, interested in people, interested in culture, history, interested in Ireland, has a love of Ireland. And he told me himself, in his own words, that Her Majesty had always wanted, before she died, to come and visit Ireland. and how much the visit meant to her. So he's a very sincere, genuine man, a very spiritual man, a very driven man. And, you know, we scorned and we said things of him so many years ago because we felt he was out of step or a little bit sort of crazy. Now, a lot of what he was talking about, everybody's talking about. Conservation, global warming, our sustainability. He was on that years ago. He was ahead of his time. He's a very thoughtful man and a very charming man and a delightful man. And he is a big challenge because modern royalty, modern monarchy, they will have to alter the way of doing things quite significantly in order to still remain somewhat relevant, and they will remain somewhat relevant.
Do you think they will? Because for me, and I'm not a royalist, I don't like sort of that hierarchy in any country, but is this kind of the last sting of a dying wasp? Because now we are hearing that a number of countries may now become republics through referendum, and also to, you know, people are very aware of the very difficult times that people are going through in Britain, much more difficult than we are here in Ireland in terms of cost of living and paying bills and what have you, and all the pomp and ceremony and the gold carriages. It just doesn't feel very 2023, and it just feels to me like you say we won't see this for quite some time. I have a feeling we'll see this is the last time people will see this in a British context, certainly on this scale.
Well, I kind of disagree with that because Prince William has the ability with his wife, the Princess of Wales, Catherine, to actually perhaps inspire a movement with his generation on matters conservational and, again, sustainable and all of that. Inevitably, after the Queen's death, there were certain countries going to decide to hold referenda on whether or not to keep the British King as head of their country. And naturally enough, a lot of them will decide no, but they will still maintain a close relationship with the British Crown because a lot of them have benefited greatly too. So it's a difficult, as I said, a difficult crossroads in the whole area of monarchy and in Britain. But in Britain, despite their situation now, which was also very much added to by Brexit and bad decisions made, and England is rather isolated because of that at this moment. Nonetheless, the British public, by and large, have a love of the royal family. Certainly that diminished slightly on the death of Her Majesty the Queen, but it's still there, it's still strong, and they will look to monarchy and the government, I mean, sensibly enough, will make sure that it's nurtured too, because for trade, tourism, and prestige, the royal family have a huge contribution to make.
Now, for those who do want to watch it, and there will be a lot of people watching on, people who are interested in it, but also people who are interested in being offended by it. You know yourself the way it will be. It's going to be a very different experience from Britain's Queen's coronation. That was 70 years ago. People perhaps have seen this footage on news and what have you. This is going to be done under not only the mainstream media, but the social media microscope. So if people are interested in it, they're going to get quite the perspective.
Absolutely. You will never see anything like it. I won't in my lifetime, for sure. It will be quite the pomp, quite the ceremony. And with that, as you say, that blanket coverage that wasn't around all those years ago when Her Majesty was crowned, you know, when only the chosen few who could afford to go to a cinema, if they were near a cinema, saw it on Pathy News and such like. It's really fascinating tomorrow to see it in its modern context. And, you know, going back to what you said, Greg, and it's interesting, it'll be very interesting for all of us to watch and really see on our screens, whether we're watching it on an iPhone, on a laptop, or whatever, a tablet, wherever, to see if it is screaming, this is totally out of step with modern world we live in, with modern Britain. Or, you know what? We like a little bit of this, a little bit of tradition, a little bit of history, a little bit of culture. It'll be there for all to see, which is going to be the most fascinating part of it. And the King, don't forget, is a much older man. The Queen's coronation was a very lengthy affair. Oh my goodness. And I believe that His Majesty this evening at Buckingham Palace will leave early because he's hosting a reception, like our president will be there, for example. But he will retire early because he couldn't, he wouldn't have the energy that his mother had. She, a young woman in her 20s when she was crowned. My goodness.
All right.
So it's...
You'll be, if you can, I'm sure you'll be watching. Before I let you go, because I think you're like me, you have an interest in all things celebrity to some extent. Claire Burns pulled out of the running to host the Late Late Show. I think Ryan Tuberty's last show's this week or next week. Have you a preference as to who you would like to see host the Late Late Show? I think they're going to struggle, Noel, to get someone to take that poison chalice, particularly in 2023. But you must have considered someone that you think would be. I think you'd be a great fit for it. But anyway, who do you think might be?
I'm on record as saying, and I will repeat it, and I was interested to read the wires early morning that Claire Byrne had dropped out. I think Patrick Kilty's the man. And he will be fabulous. He will be amazing. And he will be that breath of fresh air that the show probably needs at this point. It'll give RT an opportunity to kind of shake it up a little bit and move it around. And again, using a royal reference, again, make it more relevant to a different kind of audience. Yeah, I would put my money on Patrick Kilty.
Okay, listen, Noel, have a lovely weekend. Thank you for your time as always. I really do appreciate it.
And I wish you and your listeners a very happy weekend, and thank you as always.
All right, take care, Noel. Have a lovely day. Okay, Noel Cunningham there. Do you agree, disagree? 086 60 25,000. Very shortly, we will be joined by Michael. I'll get to some of your comments that are coming through on that. I'm trying to reach to the ones that are relating to that particular issue. But listen, a couple of comments before we go to the break on our conversation with Senator Eileen Flynn. Greg, that was terrible what Senator Flynn had to go through. People need to be educated that travellers are the indigenous people of Ireland. I'm sure Eileen's people... we need to protect our farmers. We need to improve our large farming practices. Regenerative farming is the way to go in order to protect our health and indeed our planet, they say. And lastly, last comment, we forget the gift of the English language we received. Although it was only a byproduct of dominance, it's a good thing for us, believes that listener. I don't know if how many of you out there might agree. All right, 086 60 25,000. WhatsApps and text to that number. Tell us, what have you been watching on the telly? What have you watched in the cinema? Have you seen something on the stage? Are you reading a good book? Talk to me about podcasts. Anything to do with switching off.
Are you ready for the big show coming to town? Then mark your calendars for the Balmoral Show, sponsored by Ulster Bank. Join farmers, foodies and families for 4 fun-filled days in the Icon Exhibition Centre, Lisburn. Get up close with the animals, explore the latest technology and sample delicious local food and drink. Don't miss out on the agricultural event of the year. Book your tickets now for the Balmoral Show from the 10th to the 13th of May at balmoralshow.co.uk. See you at the show.
At ESB Networks, we're connecting Ireland to a clean electric future. And as part of the National Smart Metering Programme, we're now installing smart electricity meters in your area. Your new smart meter will reduce the need for estimated bills, help you to manage your electricity usage more efficiently, and enable you to access smart electricity products and services. We'll contact you before your meter is installed. Find out more at esbnetworks.ie/smartmeter.
Do you have long-term goals that just seem like they would be impossible right now? These could include such things as a deposit on a house, buying a car outright, funding for your children's education, or simply the holiday of a lifetime. John F. Lowry Financial Services can help. If you squirrel away a small amount consistently over an extended period, there is huge scope for growth over the long term. To arrange a free consultation, visit jfl.ie or call 91240002 and speak with one of our qualified financial advisors. John F. Loughrey and Associates Limited, trading as John F. Loughrey Financial Services, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Investments can go down as well as up. Past performance is not a reliable guide to future performance.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook, and at highlandradio.com.
Okay, it is 11 o'clock on the button. Let's get a news update and say good morning to Donald Kavanagh.
Thank you, Greg. Good morning. A motion calling for purpose-built accommodation for nursing and midwifery staff is being debated at the INMO conference in Kerry this morning. Nurses say affordable housing in large cities and towns will be key to retaining nurses and midwives. Health Minister Stephen Donnelly will address the conference today in Killarney. He's also expected to announce additional nurse training places. Donegal County Council's Fisheries Committee has been told bylaws need to be introduced to ensure safety at piers and harbours in Inishowen, which are set to become much busier. Bunagee, Glengadden and Malin have now been designated as EU entry ports for Northern Ireland registered fishing vessels. Councillor Johnny McGuinness says it's a welcome boost, but it raises safety concerns which must be addressed. Long waiting time is identified as the biggest challenge in accessing child and adolescent mental health services. That's according to a new report on children's mental health needs. 78% of children surveyed said that experienced some mental health difficulties. The Children's Ombudsman says children need to have proper mental supports available to them in the school setting. Police in County Derry have confirmed the motorcyclist who died following a collision in Tobermore last evening was 43-year-old Eddie Clarkin from the Draperstown area. He was involved in a single vehicle collision on the Lisnamuck Road shortly after 5 o'clock. And while other countries will get warmer due to climate change, Ireland is set to get cooler. According to a new report into Ireland's ocean climate, a weakening of the Gulf Stream will drive down temperatures here. The warm breeze is predicted to decrease by 30%. That'll drive down water temperatures and attract larger cold-blooded fish into our seas. And that's Highland Radio News. Back with news headlines again at 12 noon.
Thanks, Donald.
At Irish Life Health, our benefit plan helps you embrace a healthier lifestyle. Get up to €250 back on a mix of benefits like fitness wearables, dietitians and sports clubs, like your local GAA club. It's health insurance, but not as you know it. Search Irish Life Health.
Irish Life Health Act is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Terms and conditions apply. Call us to see exactly what's covered.
Indeed, that's entertainment. 2 minutes past 11 this Friday. It's time now just to switch off a little bit from the trials and tribulations of life and just insert another set of trials and tribulations into life. In the forms of Michael and Fionnuala.
There you go.
I didn't see that coming. Damn it. You'd think after all these years.
No, the puns would be like right there in front of you.
Rightio. Come here. We were just talking about the television or televising of the coronation of Britain's King tomorrow. For or against? Will you be watching it, Fionnuala? It is television.
No, well, anybody who listens to this regularly knows I have an issue when it comes to them, in that I want to dislike them and yet I get dragged into I mean I sort of flicked over just to see what was going on with the funeral and kind of 3 days later came out of it, you know, that sort of way, because you just get it's amazing to me really, because it's like it's complete twaddle. You know what I mean? And we all know that it is. And you're like thinking in your head, going, you know, people in the world are starving and all those.
Yeah, people try and frame it like that, but it doesn't.
I know, but then you
work.
sit down and actually, once you sit down then and watch it, you kind of get sucked into it. And suddenly you're like, why is that guy standing there holding 6 hats? What does that mean? Why is that?
Why have they just towed a stone down from Scotland?
Yeah. Well, they didn't give it back to Scotland for years. That's why,
Right, okay.
in fairness, that's what part. They had to give it back. It used to sit under. Have you never watched the movie
No.
with Robert Carlyle?
No.
How they went and nicked it. Actually, very fun movie. But it used to sit underneath it was always placed under the throne. Is where it used to be for hundreds of years, and then they had to give it back to Scotland. So now they have to get it back to up and down again. But it weighs a lot of money. But I get caught up in all that crack because I just think you just get dragged into kind of the history of it.
Yes.
And the fact that these things actually stay so strict and to the rule and they don't seem to bend. I mean, in fairness, in some ways the Catholic Church is actually a bit more fluid than the British monarchy when it comes to, going with the times.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, and obviously all the to talk about. I think really the death knell for the royal family for me was that visit. Was it that one of the sons, not Andrew, of course, William, he went to some African nation, and it just was ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? That you had the locals. Just the way it was
the pomp
received.
and ceremony of it all.
Yeah, and it was just the sort of the elitist of the royal family, and then country they'd colonised.
Or was it not one of the Commonwealth countries that he was at?
Yes, but I think it really kind of highlighted how life has progressed, if you know what I mean, in a short space of time. But that being said, the argument the argument that Britain is going through a terrible time at the moment. People are starving and poor in great numbers, and this massive amount of money. They tried to do a similar argument here with the Biden visit, but it doesn't really wash with most of the public. People just accept it.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the thing. I mean, there's a lot to be said for when the Queen passed away, people had her kind of in their heads and their hearts or whatever, and whether or not that was going to be the change of it, or that people weren't interested in it. And then they came out in their thousands and queued for hours and days just to walk around a coffin. You're like, it does.
Michael was there
queuing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, So such a royalist me. Yeah, I'm the.
You're a bit of a queen yourself.
A bit of the opposite
really?
of. I would say I'm not to be too serious, but I'm very much my father's son. I look at the royal family through the filter of Irish history.
Yes.
So I won't be watching tomorrow.
Oh my God.
If my mum and dad were alive, mum would be watching. She'd be, because she just love it. Dad would just be like, Sue, and he would pass the heat in it, and I'd be with Dad.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
A couple of congratulations. Congratulations to Inishowen Rugby Club ahead of their 50th anniversary celebrations and opening of their changing rooms tomorrow from Correndon Nursery. Best luck to that. It's the first interprovincial match ever to be held in Donegal, actually. It's a junior match. And they've got entertainment, I believe, from I don't want to say it now in case I get it wrong. I think the entertainment's from 1:30 and then the match is at 2:30. Best wishes to Scorn and Old Buncrana. All-Ireland drama final today in County Kerry, written and directed by Patricia Tinney-Doherty from everyone in Buncrana. And of course, as you might know, Tiny Vaughan is behind a raffling of a tractor. It's to support a number of groups who were involved in the response to the Creasla tragedy, and it's going great guns. Apparently that fundraising continues in Letterkenny Shopping Centre today, tomorrow and on Sunday, and it's the Meva Fire Service, a great organisation who are one of the beneficiaries, I believe, and also who are selling the tickets. All right.
Love a tractor.
It's a lovely tractor. It's a 135 as well.
I love to win a tractor.
I want
like
a
the
tractor.
idea of. I like the idea. It's like owning one of those flatbed.
Yeah.
Like the truck.
Yes.
You know the way. Like
yes, that's another thing.
The Hilux
and a quad.
and those kind of things.
I want a Hilux,
like,
a quad, and a tractor.
Yeah. Once I saw Pierce Brosnan drive. I think it happened to be a Toyota brand. He drove it over lava. I was like, oh yeah, I totally need one of those.
Right.
He drove over lava. Awesome.
I think we need a reset. Michael Eddy, Redemption of a Rogan, RTE2.
Yes, this is on tonight.
You love Aaron too?
Aaron Morahan, yes. Have you ever heard of him, Fionnuala?
No.
Have you? There's new information to me. I didn't realise that he was a fan of yours. I watched this movie last night. I had never seen it. It came out a couple of years ago. 2020 seems to be the date on the movie. It's on tonight. I went into it sort of blind last night. I had Friends of mine had seen it and recommended it and said it was a dark comedy and it was definitely my cup of tea. And they were right. I was laughing loud and heavy from early on in this film. Fionnuala, have you seen this film?
I have seen this film, and I'd just like to say that in 2020, I too recommended it to you, and it took you 2 years before Friends recommended it.
I think it's 3 years.
No,
do your math.
You've clearly established our relationship.
Do your math.
Friends recommended it to me. And then he decided to watch it.
And then I decided to watch
Not
it. This was like 3
in
years
an
ago.
entertainment slot telling him
This is
what it's
horrendous.
about.
I know it's terrible. They're fighting again. We're going to make Greg cry. He hates it when Mommy and Daddy fight on air.
Stop it.
So this is a very surreal film. Jimmy has been away from home for 7 years and he returns home being West Cavan, rural Cavan. And we learn early on in the film that Jimmy is a pariah in his town for various reasons. One very funny and one very serious. So when people see him on the street, they're like, is that Jimmy? Is that Jimmy Cullen? And then, no, don't be daft. He would never come home. So Jimmy does come home, and very early in the film, he visits his very sick father. And very early in the film, this is not a spoiler, he accidentally kills his father. And that sets in motion a variety of events. The funeral cannot take place while it rains, the father has stipulated. So it rains for like 40 days and 40 nights, during which time the children stop speaking and stop eating, and the businesses start closing down, and everybody starts to panic. Is it Jimmy's fault? So you can gather from this brief description, this is definitely a very surreal film, not to be taken seriously. It's dark. The theme of suicide runs through it in a way that works really well, but might not be for everybody. And there are some religious moments in a church where statues come to life that may offend some people. Didn't offend me in the slightest. I was laughing from start to finish. It's on tonight. If, like me, you haven't seen it, even though friends recommended it, see it tonight. I would recommend. It's a good laugh. It's a Friday night film.
Well, we know there is a hierarchy of his friends anyway, and you are quite low.
No, I'm not in the top 10 anyways.
I'm ignoring both of you. Get a beer and sit back and enjoy it tonight. Or a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Get a cup of tea. In fact, about an hour into it, I wanted to make a cup of tea, and then I got caught up in the story, and 20 minutes later, I was like, well, if I don't go and make a cup of tea now, it'll be over. It's because I got so wrapped up. There was a big twist about an hour into the film, which I thoroughly enjoyed. It's great fun. It's great crack. And I know some of the people in it. I've worked with one of the people in it, and Aaron's name.
Loads of people in it.
Yeah, loads of. And Fionnuala, you are a fan of his.
Aaron Monaghan.
Right. What has he got that I haven't got? I want to know. Have we time? I know we have to go off there
He
at
would
12.
acknowledge me better than you do in public and my thoughts, I think.
The truth
But no,
hurts.
Aaron Monaghan is in it. He's a fantastic actor, and actually, I think his wife has actually directed it. I think that's the way. It's a group that they have in camp. They brought a few pieces here. The same kind of group that have made that movie. They did, and now of course I can't think of the name. Do you remember we saw a play and it was
the play in Cork, the group of kids, that was him, wasn't it? That was the hit, wasn't it?
The one about with the animals in it and the.
Oh, that was their. Yes, we did. Yeah, they had the very.
Yeah, they brought. I'll have to look it up.
A scene that your grandmother would not approve of.
Yeah, they brought it. They brought some stuff here to the theatre, and it always has kind of a dark, sort of a crazy kind of an edge to it. The stuff that they do, but it's definitely well worth watching.
Yes, I think this is just the best way.
So marks out of 10.
Oh, easy 8. I loved it.
It was a little bit too dark for my liking. I wouldn't like it as dark as it was. So I probably would have given it, but still would give it a good 7.5. Like there's some great acting in it. There's some you see a lot of faces that you'll recognise from different things you've seen. Some great Irish talent in it. So it's definitely worth having a look at it.
All right. So let's go, shall we, to the cinema, Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yeah.
Version 3.
Very excited. Michael and myself took ourselves to the cinema to see this. We actually ended up seeing the 3D version of it because it's in the local Letterkenny cinema here in both 3D and non. And this is supposed to be the final rendition of Guardians of the Galaxy. There's been 2 previous to this, and obviously being volume 3, this is the final one. It's also, I think, kind of marks the end of a chapter in Marvel where they're kind of moving. If anybody's a big Marvel fan, they know they kind of do different stages, and this is kind of still part of 4, isn't it? And we're heading into 5 now as the next sort of group that it goes. So they finished off a lot of people's stories and that kind of thing. I absolutely adore Guardians of the Galaxy. I think it is one of my most favourites of the Marvel movies. This one is sort of is a little bit of a step away from it. The one thing I would say about 1 and 2 in Guardians of the Galaxy, even though there was some kind of like minor adult themes or whatever, like abandonment and different things like that come up in it, you could bring a 6, 7, 8, all those little kids you see running around in the pajamas and all those, with all the superhero pajamas and that. You could bring all of those to see this movie and the Guardians, and you wouldn't, there was nothing in it that you think that, oh God, they could take that away and it might be upsetting for them. This kind of took a little bit of a dark turn, which is not outside of the Marvel idea, but kind of for me, for the Guardians, was kind of outside of it. The stories are normally that sort of a bit more brighter than the other ones, but this sort of had a dark twist. There's one of the characters in it, and we got a lot of his backstory, and that was quite dark and kind of upsetting. There was a lot of stories coming to an end or coming to a close that had kind of been different themes that had come across the 3 movies. I'm not sure was I very happy with how some of them ended, but then that's my own personal, I like everything to be tied up with a bow.
Well, it cannot be completely written, directed, filmed, produced to satisfy every one of your wants, Fionnuala, as much as we...
not?
Because you are an individual on a planet of 7 billion.
I know, but...
So you're going to have
and she's one of my friends too. Let's just put that out there.
I hold my opinion very highly, though, so I really feel they should have taken me into account. But no, I have to say it is an absolutely thoroughly enjoyable movie. It's getting, like, even when you're reading the reviews and stuff on it, it's getting huge rave reviews from the viewers, and that some of the critics are kind of coming on both sides of it. There's a lot of sort of going on in it. The story's probably...
It looks amazing.
It looks
it's
absolutely
definitely a
fantastic.
big screen. If you can get to the big screen, 3D or not, I don't know.
Yes.
But it looks like you want to see this on the big screen.
The 3D, I was kind of walking out of it thinking I didn't necessarily think there was anything massive.
It's really hard to talk to each other in 3D with the glasses on, like, hello.
No,
she still talks. She still talks.
I think sometimes with 3D films, they stick stuff in for the 3D part of it that perhaps doesn't need to be
that
there.
point where the person goes, hey, look over there.
I know.
Look at that thing there. Pointing.
I think
well,
in our head,
over here.
But I think in our heads as well, I'm of the old-fashioned kind of thing. If this is what 3D was supposed to be. 3D was supposed to be like that when you stuck out your finger, that I nearly felt like that, like you were doing there, that I'd nearly feel it brush against me. You know what I mean? The reality. Whereas really, to me, all it gives is a depth into the picture. You know what I mean? I don't really, remember like when it first came out, we were like, oh my God, this is going to be like as if you're in the movie.
They're climbing out of the screen.
Oh yeah. And that it was going to be, like you feel like they started going in the 4D where they started putting in the touch and the smell and all that into it as well. And you're like, oh, this is the way to go. But now it just seems that it gives a kind of depth. So to me, it doesn't really add a lot to it. But some people really enjoy it. So I suppose I wouldn't take it away from them.
Did the 3D add to the experience for you?
No.
It didn't. What about you?
No.
Not really.
I saw Ant-Man in 3D and I thought the 3D was much better in Ant-Man. The 3D in this it's give or take. There was nothing. There was a couple of times where you're looking through the bars of a cage and stuff like that, and that's impressive. But apart from that, no is the answer to your question.
More immersive.
There's not much, no. Okay. Whereas Ant-Man really took you into an alien world, and there was things off over the horizon, and there was stuff that I thought was very cool. Just a different thing.
So what did you think of the film out of 10 then, Fionnuala? I mean, so I think it's going to be a great popcorn movie in it that you get out.
Look, I 100%. It was a fantastic movie, as in it's got all of the elements that you're looking for. I wasn't mad about the story as I would have been in other ones in it.
You're very invested in the story and the world
I do
as
like
well,
and then the characters and that kind of thing. And it's sort of... I suppose in my head, knowing that it was the last one, you kind of felt that things were going to be resolved in some sort of a way, and a lot of it wasn't. And then there is a question of, will they show up in other movies along the way in this new thing? And maybe that's why they've left it kind of up in the air. To me, it felt a little like I kind of needed another one. it sort of felt a little bit like a middle movie kind of a thing, as in they'd moved the story so far and then it's kind of been left a bit, but then they may address it in the next volume of it. But I did really enjoy it. There's no way you could go in and walk out of it without feeling that was fantastic. And so I would definitely give it an 8 or 9, 100%. I really enjoyed it. But I would say to people who are used to it being like Guardians being the one that you can confidently bring smaller kids to, I think you might want to sort of check it out online and just make sure, because if anybody who watched it, one of the characters, Rocket, has been experimented on, and they go back to his story about the experimentations. And while none of it is very graphic as to what happens, there is other animals that have been experimented on. It kind of gives you that sort of... Do you remember in Toy Story, I saw another reviewer had kind of... put it against it. Remember in one of the Toy Stories where the neighbour had taken the dolls and kind of put them on different bodies.
Yeah. I know what you're saying.
So there's a little bit of that in it, which could, for younger kids that would normally sort of say, "Oh God, no problem. I would have brought anybody to see the Guardians movie." I always thought it's a lovely starter for Marvel. Well, what did you?
Oh, I loved it. I thought it was, to me, it's like the Captain Americas have always been the best trilogy. Now I think maybe Guardians is the best trilogy. It's a unified, cohesive story from beginning to end. I think it's a definitive ending. I just think it didn't end the way maybe we're expecting. But I think James Gunn is finished now because he's not with Marvel anymore. A lot of those contracts are finished. I know some of the cast have said that's their contract's done and they're not doing it anymore. And I think it's a good ending. Actually, it's a great ending. It's just not what we always expected. I cried more than once during this film. Luckily, the 3D glasses kept Falula from ridiculing me.
Goggles that were filled.
Filled with water the whole way. Yeah, but I loved it. I'll be going back.
I think
I'll be going back to see it again.
I definitely watch it again.
Oh yeah,
I
I'll go back and see it again.
I would look forward to watching it, but I actually might do the 1, 2, 3. I think you watch these particular films. Maybe there are people listening that watch them in the same context of you, but you watch them in the context of the wider
universe,
Marvel picture, don't you? As well,
and you don't need to. A buddy of mine.
No, I'm not.
The Guardians pulls out entirely that you don't need to.
Because he had said to me after we said, "Oh, I haven't seen Ant-Man yet," and I was like, "It doesn't matter. They're not connected. Just go and see this if you love the Guardians movies. Doesn't matter."
We're going to take a break. Before I do, Seeger Sessions Revival. It's a 13-piece band of musicians from all over the Northwest. They're celebrating Bruce Springsteen's Seeger Sessions album. If anyone has seen them, they will know how awesome they are. Well, they're playing in the Button Factory, Temple Bar, Dublin tomorrow, if anyone's travelling down for the concert. Also, you can see the Seeger Sessions Facebook page for a list of venues and dates to be played across 2023. Let me see, there was another thing I needed to mention here. Has anyone watched Beef on Netflix? I so nearly gave it up midway through episode 4, ended up finishing it that night. Beef on Netflix. Haven't even had that flagged to me. Sorry, put your mic down.
A guy from one of the other radio stations. He was telling
would he be a friend?
He would. Johnny actually would be a friend.
A friend you might listen to?
Ignoring you both.
He was. We used to watch Lost together back in the day when I lived down in Galway.
So he knows your...
exactly.
Yeah,
and then he begged me to watch Game of Thrones, and I watched the first 2 and went, oh my God, I will never speak to him again. And then I watched the 3rd, and suddenly 6 seasons later,
you're speaking to him.
Oh my God, I loved it. So he's recommending this Beef. It's on, and it has been lit for another series, so which is unusual for Netflix because they keep pulling out the one series wonders. So it must be quite good. I think it's set in a chef's thing as well, isn't it?
All right. Last season of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Was it 99? Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
Yeah, well, Nine-Nine.
Finally dropped on Netflix. Very hard to end a good show, but I think, says this listener, they did it perfectly.
Good to hear. Good to hear, yeah.
Have you watched that?
Oh, yeah. I love it. This is part of my trawl through life trying to find my next half-hour comedy.
This has been happening for
it has been years.
4 years?
Because I haven't found one. Because Brooklyn Nine-Nine used to have 20-odd episodes.
Yeah.
It went on for like this is the 8 years, that this was the last one. Where is the new series? Like Brooklyn Nine-Nine is up there with Parks and Recreation. It's up
30
there
Rock.
with Modern Family, 30 Rock. It's a really good police, funny, great ensemble cast. The whole
It's really
thing.
a workplace. I mean, yes, the police element is there, but it's a workplace comedy. Like
it's nice when fans like our listener are happy with how it concluded.
yeah.
Because how
it's
often are we
unusual.
disappointed? You know yourself, some of our crossovers on stuff we like.
Yeah.
I started watching Jack Ryan again.
Oh,
because I wanted to sort of follow on from the night clerk.
Yes.
Night agent, sorry.
Yeah.
I watched that, but I have no recollection of anything that's happening in it whatsoever. I don't know what was going on when I watched it the first time, but it's enjoyable. You're a big fan. That's
I'm
why
a
I
big
mentioned
fan. I wasn't crazy about series 3. I wonder, is it because we binge watch things, and when you binge watch things, do they all morph into like this?
Of course they do.
Amorphous thing where you don't remember it. Yeah, but it's great fun. That first season is probably the first and the 2 seasons. The first 2 seasons are really, really good.
Yeah.
You haven't seen the third.
No,
you
I
haven't seen the
haven't.
third.
No, and I'm not sure how much of the first I watched because it is so fresh. But it's just it's a good show.
It's a good show. I agree. Completely. Yeah, good
there's
action
a lot
show.
of stuff that's not good.
But it's a good action show. You want to, and you have a likable hero, and you get behind him. And when other people don't listen to him, and you're like, well, he's going to have to break the rules to get the right thing done.
I liked season 3. I thought it was good, but I do think it's. I don't know how many seasons there are in it, in the sense that once you've seen him, do
his thing,
defy, like the whole point about Jack Ryan is either you go the Tom Cruise way, in which case he doesn't look like a fighter, he looks like he's smart, and he goes, so it depends on which way you're kind of going to go with it, in this one, you just don't think John Krasinski is going to be that all over action figure-y, and then he suddenly is in it, and he's very good in it.
But they do hint at it in that he is obviously got a military background, but he's suppressing it for one reason or other.
Yeah.
So, but I get where you're coming from.
And he's also credible as a nerdy character. You believe, I think, easily that this is a guy who could sit for hours and hours doing computer things and looking at data.
Bit of a row amongst listeners about Beef. None of us have watched it. But this caller says, I don't agree with renewing Beef. It was excellent, but to continue it is a money grab, which has actually made me more interested in it than
But it's a good point. Like one of the things that I might be chatting about is the BBC series Time. And, they're bringing Time back, and they're bringing Vigil back.
What is it? BBC Time? What is it?
It was a series about prison from a couple of years back. Right. But the point, I agree, I haven't seen Beef, but yes, sometimes you wonder about things getting renewed. You think, is the story not done in one, and do they need to bring it back? I don't know. I haven't seen Beef, but I think that's a point worth listening to.
Because I think sometimes when people love something, you know what I mean, as in love the series, they go, oh, we have to continue this.
The
and
flight
that's not
attendant,
necessarily a good reason.
Flight attendant should never have come back. The first season was absolutely brilliant. They brought it back for a second season, and they just did. Once her issues were dealt with, more or less, you didn't have a story anymore.
It's a completely different series then, really. Okay.
Yeah.
The voices there of Michael and Fionnuala, and thank you for getting involved in the conversation. 086 60 25,000. What are you watching? What do you want to watch? And it just doesn't have to be stuff that's good. What really disappointed you? Have you been to the cinema? Have you views on 3D? We just want you all up in this conversation, so to speak. So we shall do maybe a bit on time after we come back after these messages.
The county's #1 talk show, The 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio.
Shop LK at Brian McCormick Sports and Leisure, Main Street, Letterkenny. All the kids are back playing football with longer days and shorter nights. Kids football boots from only €25, available in Velcro or lace. Check our new range of kids boots, shorts, socks and accessories. Visit our new club room with quarter zips, t-shirts and matching bottoms for your favourite local club. Click on Teamwear at bmcsports.ie for more details.
I've been surfing all morning at FlemingLTD.com to find out about Fleming Doors, Fleming Steel and Fleming Coatings and their full range of products. So come surfing with me at FlemingLTD.com. Fleming, 91 48 234.
Blow to Feed and Straw Supplies. For more in your Farmer's Journal, here's Paul Mooney.
400,000 straw bales and 500,000 tonnes of grain lost as government policy fails. Massive variation in feed prices. Find out if you're paying too much. Fears for farm incomes as supermarkets slash butter and milk prices. How the Fair Deal scheme can affect farm transfers. Plus, why people building one-off homes in rural Ireland are set to save thousands.
All in this week's Irish Farmer's Journal, your media brand of the year.
Highland Radio time checks with Expressway. Travel Route 32 from Letterkenny to Dublin when you book online and travel for less. Expressway, bringing you the time at...
All right, 28 minutes past 11. We're talking about the telly, but how would you like to get on the telly? A new series of Underdogs is coming out. It's to be broadcast on TG Cahir. Fiona Fitzgerald is the series producer and joins us now. Hiya, Fiona.
Hi, Greg. How are you?
Good, thanks. Talk to us about the show.
So basically, Greg, so for the past couple of years, we've been doing underdogs with the GAA and the LGFA, and then this year with the Women's World Cup and the excitement of that, and such a big year for women's sport, we are turning our attention to women's soccer. So basically how it works is we put together a team of underdog players. So these are players that maybe play at a grassroots level in clubs, or players that have stepped away from soccer. They may have played at a higher level for various reasons, and we give them the opportunity to play against some of the best teams in the country. So the idea is that they'll train together for 6 months, and at the end of that they will take on one of the top SSE Electricity Women's Premier Division teams. So it's a big challenge, and at the moment we're putting together that squad. So we're putting a call out for women's soccer players all over the country to apply, and we'll be holding trials this June.
And the age criteria is you have to be over 18.
You have to be over 18. You have to be over 18. You can't be an active player in the SS Electricity Premier Division League at the moment, or within the last 3 seasons. But other than that, it's open to everyone, bar anyone that's played at a senior international level.
So it should make up for quite an interesting cast then, so?
Yeah, I mean, we've done this program, with the GAA for years, and it's just a brilliant real life opportunity for people to make that jump. For whatever reason, they may not have done it to the normal channels, and it just gives them that massive opportunity.
All right, brilliant stuff. Short and simple. People can apply by going to tg4.ie/underdogs. That is the URL. And sign up there. Brilliant stuff. Thanks, Fiona.
Thanks, Greg.
All right, take care of yourself. Back with more from Michael and Fionnuala in just 2 minutes.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook, and at highlandradio.com.
Do you know pneumo? Pneumo is short for pneumococcal disease. Like the common cold, pneumococcal infection is spread by close contact through coughing and sneezing. Invasive pneumococcal disease is a very serious illness. Of those who develop an invasive infection, 1 in 4 will get pneumonia, 1 in 4 will get meningitis, and 1 in 10 will die. If you know pneumo, you'll know that people aged 65 and older, or people with chronic conditions like diabetes, asthma, or heart disease are at risk. Know pneumo. Know how to protect yourself. Talk to your GP or pharmacist today, or visit pneumo.ie. Brought to you by MSD, supported by Diabetes Ireland and CRE.
The groom goes free. The groom goes free. Yes, you heard it. The Groom's Room. Evolve Clothing, Letterkenny Retail Park. The groom goes free. Call in today. Terms and conditions apply.
Why leave all the magic moments or great scenes you've captured on your phone sitting there or in the cloud when you can have them printed at McGee's Chemist? Using the McGee's app or one of the in-store kiosks, you can upload your photos from your phone, Google Photos, Facebook or Instagram and have them printed instantly within an hour or in by 10 and ready by 5. See mcgees.ie for more details. Hold your memories in your hand with McGee's Chemist, Letterkenny.
Is the appearance of your staff important to your business? It's the first point of contact for customers when entering your premises. At C&M Embroidery in Letterkenny, they have a huge range of clothing covering all areas of the workplace. It's widely known that customers warm to and trust employees that present themselves well. Have your company name embroidered or printed on all your work uniforms. Contact C&M Embroidery on 07491 28097 and get your staff looking their best.
All right, bang up to date we are now. We've another half an hour in the show, and then Michaela Clark, she's chomping at the bit just to get in here now and play 3 hours of Dermot Kennedy. She just cannot wait. So
only Dermot Kennedy.
It's just around the Dermot Kennedy. It's not even the Northwest anymore. Now, I hope I haven't put her off playing Dermot Kennedy. I just know she's a fan. But anyway, that's fine. We want to hear Dermot Kennedy. We'll be disappointed if we don't. Right, okay. Time then. Let's talk about Time.
Yes, this is a BBC series from a couple of years ago. A friend recommended it.
Not me.
Not you. No, I saw it myself a couple of years ago, and it's popping up on BBC, on RTE, apologies, on Sunday night at 1 a.m. So it's a chance to see this highly acclaimed series if you haven't seen it. You can either sit up late, or you can just record it, time shift it, that's what all the kids are saying. 30 years ago. It's a story of two men.
On the edge.
Stephen Graham.
As per the trailer.
Stephen Graham is a prison officer, and we follow his story across the 3-part series, and that to me was the highlight. Of the series. It's a story of two men. Stephen Graham is a prison officer, and we follow his story across the 3-part series, and that to me was the highlight of the series. Big fan of Stephen Graham.
He's in everything, though, isn't he?
He's in everything, but he's so good at drama and so good at comedy. And Code 404 is just one of my favourite comedy shows. We also have Sean Bean, and he is a man who arrives in prison and he reflects on the crime that landed him there. This storyline was didn't work for me so much until the third episode. I thought it paid off very well in the third episode, but I found his mooning around the prison, feeling sorry for himself.
Mooning or moaning?
It was well. Well,
there's quite a difference between the two.
When you have a long face.
And
okay.
And it's prison related.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, let's keep it. Okay. So anyway, ignoring both of you, I would give this an enthusiastic thumbs up, particularly for the third episode. It's 3 hours. It's highly acclaimed. They are going to bring it back, but not with these characters because they're bringing. Yeah, and I'm sort of like. Yeah, the story of these two men is done when you watch this 3 hour
Bit
story.
of a theme coming on the programme now, isn't it? Yeah,
bringing
in
things
terms of-
back.
yeah.
But obviously, it was a huge hit back in the summer of 2021. The BBC are obviously going to franchise it. And I think the next one is set in a women's prison. And it's just going to be a completely different story. Anyway, be that as it may, if you haven't seen this, and of course, so much material out there, there's loads of people who won't have seen it, but will have heard of it. You have a chance to catch up with it again. RTE, very late on Sunday night, but set up or as the kids say, time shifted.
Yeah, okay. Right, so that's time coming up on RTE. Did you mention the time it's on? Sorry.
1 a.m.
Right, okay.
It's
So
late,
they're burying
it's
it,
late.
aren't they?
It's late,
Okay.
yeah, it's late.
Right.
I think it's after... what's on before? Is it? Anyway, I'm joking.
Really doesn't matter what's on before.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Is Kin repeated late or something, no?
Possibly. There was a debate about Kin being too violent. Now, I haven't watched it, but seriously, we've had this conversation before. What's going on? I know radio stations have to fill the time, but if you don't like it, don't watch it. Look at the amount of violence that's in all TV shows.
TV, yeah.
Why is it because it's created here?
Yes.
Are we saying, is it too violent?
Is it a double standard?
It's a moot point. Like,
Yeah, it's
who
a moot-
cares?
Yeah.
I think it's because sometimes you find with these things that the distinction between reality and fiction comes a bit blurred. And I think with Kin and the same thing with Love Hate, there was all talk about that. I think but when they're set here and they're done here, then they think we should only be portraying, a cleansed version of. And obviously then if you are going to portray anything that has a negative thing, it's television. You're going to take it to an extreme. That's the whole point of it.
Exactly.
Like there might not necessarily be that level of violence.
It's not a bold vulture video, to advertise Ireland as a holiday destination.
But it could be set
Completely agree,
anywhere.
Yeah. No, I think it's that unrealistic expectation of an Irish connection in a show. And it's like, oh no, you can't have that kind of stuff. But you can, of course you can.
I actually think that having the conversation is a little bit embarrassing.
Well, I
Yeah.
don't know. Do they have the same conversation in other countries? I mean, have you seen Gangs of London?
Or Baltimore.
Oh my God, that was that was unbelievable. There was about 4 TV programs that came out of there. That was like each one more violent than the other. Yeah. But Gangs of London, I had to stop watching Gangs of London.
Yeah.
The level of violence in it
Well, that was your choice. Would it stop you going to London?
No, oh my God, no, I love London. But it was just, it was literally...
To the point where if someone says to you in a bar, say, I'm not going to London, I watched Gangs of London, you would laugh at them.
Exactly.
Yeah,
well, I mean...
You would laugh at
it's
them.
like...
You'd go, seriously, that was a TV show, don't you?
I know, yeah. Well, or it's like saying, Law and Order has been set in New York.
Yes.
3 series of it has been set in New York. But like, everybody wants to go and see New York, even if it's only for
Miami,
3.
like we had Dexter, serial killer running around Miami, getting away with it.
Yeah,
for
you can't.
years.
You have to take things. But I think sometimes I wonder about where we take the blur, because I saw a film which I actually really enjoyed, Operation Fortune. It's on Amazon.
What a lovely segue, because that's exactly what we're going to talk about now.
No, because it does fall into it. Because it was, and the only reason why I wanted to watch it, because I don't normally like it, is Guy Ritchie's movies, and I'm not a massive Guy Ritchie fan until he did The Gentleman, and then which you can watch on Netflix, and it is an amazing movie, quite violent.
So Jason Statham was in this as well,
he's
is it?
in this one, yeah. Jason Statham's in this one as well. So is Hugh Grant. Aubrey Plaza's in it. Carrie Elwes, I can never pronounce his name. What's his name from The Princess Bride? The guy that...
Oh, he was in the
He calls you Finola, so it doesn't matter.
That's fine. He's from The Princess Bride anyways. Everybody will recognise him.
X-Files.
And But this is made by the same crowd that did it, and it's supposed to be that similar kind of a thing, rather than just the kind of pure violence of Guy Ritchie's earlier stuff, which wasn't a big fan of Snatch and a few of those other ones, which kind of put me off him. But now this would make him revisit.
It's a sequel, no?
No, it's not a sequel. Although
we're watching the trailer here, and it looks very much like
it's very similar.
Hugh Grant's in it as well.
Yeah, Hugh Grant's in it as well. Even his kind of character is kind of similar, even though it is a different character. But I was looking forward to this. This was supposed to come out in 2020, and I was really looking forward to it because, as I said, not normally a big fan, but loved The Gentleman, even though it was violent and everything. Just had a really good story, great cast, and I thought this would be exactly the same. This never got a cinema release.
Okay.
Now, the reason this never got a cinema release is because in it, it was it was supposed to come out last year. That's it. Never got a cinema release because in it, the bad guy in it, one of the bad guys in it now, there's numerous bad guys because, as you know...
Don't tell me he's Russian.
No, he's Ukrainian.
Ah, right.
And we cannot be seen, apparently, at that time, you could not be seen to portray... Ukrainians, in any kind of a negative way. Now, it had absolutely no relevance. This guy could have been from Mars for the amount, it had no relevance whatsoever. It's one particular bad guy in a movie full of bad guys.
Yeah.
Like from all over the place. There was every other continent in the world was represented in some way as a bad guy. But because of that, at the time when it was supposed to be released, the war had broken out and they decided that they couldn't release. People would not go to see a movie in which one of the bad guys was. And I'm like, that just seems insane to me.
So he still is a Ukrainian bad guy. It hasn't been dubbed or edited or anything.
It hasn't. Okay. No, it hasn't been changed.
You wouldn't know. You say no. That's ridiculous.
I know.
I mean,
I know, but no, they didn't change it. It is a world gone.
That's been done. Yeah,
it just no, they did. But to be honest, I don't know. Did they recut it or something or whatever? But like, you kind of find out that he's a Ukrainian for about 15 seconds in it. And like I said, there's no relevance.
Maybe there's a bit of tweaking. I'm now thinking maybe there's a bit of tweaking done.
Well, if there is, you cannot see where the tweaking is in it, because if you watch it, and I like anybody else that's watched it, I'd love them to comment in and see whether or not it meant something more than them, and did I miss it somewhere along the way. But I was kind of genuinely looking out for it because I thought
you're probably just afraid of it being cancelled and never being able to publish it.
I don't know exactly what happened with it, because like you think about, like, you were talking about Jack Ryan. Jack Ryan has to have an enemy as such, and like the first time round, I think it was some Arabic country, Syrian or Arab.
Yeah.
Like they have to pick a country, you know what I mean? Or they could even, just to be on the safe side, go back in the day when, all the Rocky movies were against Russia.
Done, some of these things are cut out, like, the Marvel series, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They rejigged that enormously. There was a whole storyline in that about a virus. And they were like, after COVID came, they cut all that out. But when you watch that 6 hours, you'd be hard pushed to find where that storyline was. It can be removed.
So
that was the storyline.
So this looks like this looks high budget, lots of explosions and fighting and stuff.
I think people watch it. I think you'll enjoy it. You love that kind of thing. If you like The Gentleman, there's good story, there's good everything. I really enjoyed it. Now,
would you watch it with your granny?
Oh yeah, there's none of that in it. Just that it's a bit violent. That's the only thing.
Okay, she doesn't.
Granny
mind that.
doesn't mind a bit of violence. That's fine. She
none
doesn't
of that in it.
Exactly. She just doesn't like the kissing. That's it.
So Operation Fortune. It's on Amazon.
Yeah.
So if you don't have Amazon, sign up for a free trial. Use an email address and exhaust their library in about a week.
And then let me know whether or not you were offended by the numerous bad guys in it.
Okay. Right. Flashdance on Apple. Sky.
Oh, yes.
Is this a remake?
No, I rewatched the original film. I hadn't seen this film in over 30 years.
He was brought to see it in school.
It's one of the... no, not Flashdance. It's one of the first soundtracks I ever bought. I still have that on cassette tape. I still have it with its yellow cover. I had forgotten how much I loved everything about this film. It's just so much fun. It's just cheesy fun. And you've got this welder who I think is a very good welder, and we were having this kind of discussion about what a bad welder she is. I totally think she's a great welder. But it's an utterly charming film. Yes, it has its issues. There's a 20-year age difference between her and her romantic partner, for instance, at least 20 years. But who cares? It's a film about believing in yourself. The music is fantastic. I would speak to people who saw it many years ago and have forgotten how great it is and how much fun it is. And what's interesting about it is there's subtext. She has these two friends who also have their dreams and also pursue their dreams, but they don't have anyone there to support them or to give them encouragement. And in the narrative, they both fail. She has an old lady who gives her unconditional support from day one, and the way it ends, you know, it ends well without spoiling it. And then there's a point there to be made about, look, giving support to people who have their dreams, and the other people are being torn down. There's the ice skater girl, and her father is constantly making little of her. And there's the comedian guy and his boss. And another thing I loved about it, and I had forgotten, is that when you think of 80s movies like this, you expect every character to constantly enunciate every hope and dream they have. But Flashdance isn't like that. They don't constantly, you know, she doesn't even really put into words what she wants for a long time. So it's way better than I expected, and I loved every second of it.
I think that's a delightfully passionate review of the programme, of the film.
Yeah. And it is what it is. You got to just look at these things.
The subtext.
It is what it
about
is.
the subtext of Flashdance. Okay, I love the depth you bring to it all.
And you wouldn't think I'd enjoy a movie where you have Jennifer Beals in a leotard rolling around on the floor.
Wow.
But yes, I did.
Now he ruined it.
There you go.
Now he ruined it.
Yeah.
Ruined it.
And
But
I
it's
was
fun.
going to withhold my cynicism, but now.
No, you've yourself.
no.
And Michael Nouri is in this, and he was in a cop show in the 80s called Downtown. He was Glenn Close's husband on Damages. He's in Yellowstone. Always been one of my favourite. And speaking of Yellowstone, Kevin Costner's out. It's official.
Oh, my word.
That's a shock.
That's going to upset people.
That's going to upset people. Kevin Costner, it seems to be officially declared this week after weeks of infighting, because the show is shut down production. He's not coming back. He's going to finish out his scenes, but he's not. He's leaving the show. I'm gutted.
I do want to find out what he did. That's going to end up being some sort of.
Okay, let's
No, he wants to make. No, he wants to make a film. He doesn't. No, he did nothing. He wants to make
I'm not going to ask you what you're going to do with Flashdance out of 10.
11 out of 10. 11 out of 10.
I just say it's amazing with Flashdance, because just the welding thing, just for people, if you've ever seen the full Monty, you'll know where the welding comes in. It's like a big scene.
Well, I mean, obviously she can take the helmet off and then shake out her hair.
It's one of the most.
In the full Monty, there's about a 10-minute scene where
you're jealous of that scene, Greg. You're very jealous of that scene.
Where they're watching they're watching Flashdance, and all they keep going is that weld will never hold. That'll never hold. But the one thing that's weird about it is you rarely see it shown again. When you think about Footloose has been on a few times. It's one of those movies.
Does Dirty Dancing get shown a lot?
Yes, it does. Yeah,
okay.
It actually gets shown sometimes on a Sunday evening. I was like, what? It's completely not children related.
But Flashdance maybe is more of an after 9 o'clock film, is that right?
I know. But I just always find it amazing. It's one of those movies, it's one of those movies that even if people haven't seen it, have heard of it, because it's kind of in the zeitgeist kind of.
I certainly have heard the soundtrack.
Oh, the soundtrack. Yeah. And another thing about this movie, it was the first Jerry Bruckheimer movie. Jerry Bruckheimer went on to produce Top Gun, went on to produce Beverly Hills Cop. He's the guy behind the CSI. He's behind everything. It started with Flashdance for Jerry Bruckheimer. I did not know that either.
What a feeling. Okay. What?
Excellent.
It was completely. Oh, all right. Okay. Yeah. All right. That is Flashdance. It's coming up on. It's on Sky. Is it? What?
It's on. Check my notes here. I think Apple have it, isn't it? Yeah.
Which is on Sky. I suppose that's where the.
Yeah. No, wait a second. Let me double check.
Apple's on its own.
You're probably right. I'm just checking my own notes here. Flashdance.
Well, your
Apple
notes
and
actually
Sky.
Both. That's what I was going to say.
You've got them there. Yeah, exactly. It's on both.
Okay, those are the voices of Michael and Fanula. What is the panel thoughts on the live-action Mona so soon after its original release? Moana. Okay, now pardon my ignorance. Haven't heard of it till now.
I am looking forward to it. I have to say I really enjoyed it. It's the cartoon version that has The Rock in it. The Rock plays a demigod, and he does all the singing and everything in it, and it's actually like a very fun kind of a movie. He is going to be in it again, so it's interesting to see where that's going to go, to see him singing live action and that kind of thing. Look, they're doing them all.
The plot between that and Black Adam, which got an awful lot of criticism. Is his career tailing off?
He's not the box office draw he was.
He's not. I'm not sure
the
what
Moana thing.
Moana is that good or bad?
Well, the Moana thing is kind of based in his cultural heritage.
Yes,
and so one of the reasons why they made it, I think, was for. I know we kind of use that phrase "people of color" as in a broad range, but it really was for people who are culturally from, I suppose, South Pacific, different
Understood. Yeah, I get you.
Caribbean, different kind of those sort of island groups or whatever. The people that come from that culture. So that's really what this story is sort of based on. So that would be his own cultural heritage. So I think that's why it means a lot to him. You see an awful lot of things as well. He's got 4 girls, I think it is, and they're all under the age of like 8 or 9. They are obsessive Moana fans. You see loads of him singing to them and trying to show them how he actually is the guy on the TV when they're watching the movie. So I think it's just something that maybe has a special place in his heart that he's doing it. But look at as people got excited about the Little Mermaid and different things like that, and that's due out in the next week or so, I think, in the cinema.
Okay.
And we just have to wait and see what they do with it.
Caller says the acting in Kin, this series, is terrible. Apart from Aidan Gillen, who's an old reliable, isn't he?
Yeah.
And Marie Doyle Kennedy as well.
She's another reliable.
Right, back with more from Michael and Fionnuala after these.
They say knowledge is power, so the more you know about your personal finances, the more power you'll have over them. Now, all the knowledge and power you need is right at your fingertips with the CCPC Money Hub. Free, impartial and comprehensive information, calculators and tools to help you learn more and take full control of your personal finances. Get to know the CCPC Money Hub at ccpc.ie/money. From the Competition and Consumer Protection Commission.
Get ready for spring-summer with the Villa Rose V-Spa. Our luxurious body scrubs will leave you feeling smooth and silky, and we offer waxing and sugaring hair removal options so you can be beach ready in no time. Book now and take advantage of our amazing promotions. An introductory €20 gel nail offer or €50 luxury pedicure promotion throughout May. Look your best on your holiday with fresh skin and nails. Check out our full offerings at villarose.ie. The Villa Rose V-Spa, your destination for spring-summer beauty.
At Hickey, Clark and Langan Insurance Brokers, they compare quotes from all the leading insurers, so you get a great price. Home, motor and van, farm, holiday home, travel and liability insurance, they quote them all. So if the worst happens, you're covered. For a competitive insurance quote today, call Hickey, Clark and Langan on 9126688 or pop into their office at Ballymacool, Letterkenny. Hickey, Clark and Langan General Insurances Limited, trading as Hickey, Clark and Langan, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Okay, now we were chatting on this programme last week about a special screening of An Cailín Ciúin, Fionnuala. Do you want to give us a reminder of that?
Yeah, just to let people know if anybody wants to go and see it. I know there was a lot of people that were disappointed and hadn't even heard too much about it until it came up with all the Oscar talk. But it is on next Wednesday, the 10th, at 8 o'clock, and it is on in the cinema here, Century Cinema here, but it is an event being held by Líonra Letterkenny. So you have to contact Líonra Letterkenny in order to go, and the tickets are only €5.
Yeah, exactly,
so they're supporting it. So if you contact Líonra Letterkenny, give a call there to 074 912 7479. Give the office a call there and book in, because it is reserved seating. There's only about 80 places for people, and it'll just be a group of people getting together. If you have a bit of Irish, even better. You can have a bit of a chat with everybody else. I'd love to tell you mine was as good. Not, I'm afraid. But it'll just be a really nice kind of an evening. Go and see the movie, have a little conversation in Irish with people, and just get to socialise through the medium of Irish.
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday, 8 o'clock.
Have you written a poem for me?
We have a poem, yes. Are we
Can you give us the background to it?
Well, we went to see Tartuffe on Wednesday night. It's running. It's the Abbey's production. It's on tonight and tomorrow night. So 2 nights left. Recommend it. It's a comedy. It's an old comedy. We had the person on here talking about it a few weeks ago. Was it the week you were off, maybe?
Maybe.
But yeah, it's been updated. Frank McGuinness is responsible. It's definitely a think piece and a talking piece. It's about a character who misleads people. So you could analyse it in the lens of Trump or
journalism.
Yeah, you can. No, seriously, yeah, you can.
I know.
We did spend ages downstairs. Like, we spent ages actually chatting about it downstairs, you know. But it's a farce, so you can take it seriously, or you can just. A friend of mine came out and she said, great crack. You know, it's great crack. You don't have to be all serious about it if you don't want it like that. But the whole thing is in rhyme.
Yeah.
So are we going to do our piece?
Well, not surprisingly, I didn't get a lot of it, but it was definitely worth seeing.
So the play is completely in rhyme?
Yes. Will we do verse 1 to let them in the game, and then you can do verse 2?
So you then wrote this?
Yes.
Okay.
So here we go. I'll do verse 1, you do verse 2.
Okay.
Go.
Myself and Fionnuala did go see a play. Was it on Tuesday? No, it was on Wednesday. We could have been late. We were on time. The play that we saw, it was all done in rhyme.
The music was loud and all quite appealing, and one chandelier did hang from the ceiling. The costumes were garish, a sight to behold. The programme was large, it did need a fold.
People were laughing from start to the end. Did we mention the programme? It was easy to bend. Though laughs were aplenty, 'tis a play about lies and those who successfully pull wool over eyes. Okay. There you go. Do you want now? That's you tonight. Greg is buying a ticket.
I don't know what's happening. Okay, this is all great.
Do you think we should do that every week?
No. No, I really don't.
I told him it was too long.
It wasn't. It was perfect. I liked. The folding programme seemed to feature quite a lot.
I did. Yeah.
All right, so
it's amazing what you'll rhyme when it's like 12:30 at night, and you're like, I need to.
I actually think you did really quite well. Your delivery was far more enthusiastic than Fanula's.
He has an acting, but I'm not.
You're a natural performer.
I can't even voice ads here. I'm no good at it.
All right, a caller says, had a great time on the Glasgow trip. Well done to all involved.
Great.
That's Katie and Sean signed.
No, they did have a good time. Everybody got back safely, thank God, yesterday evening. So that was.
Were you just referring to Katie and Sean?
I was worried about them too.
It's always sunny in Philadelphia, and Ted Lasso are great TV shows.
Yes,
they're both
completely.
Certainly,
agree.
Obviously, Ted Lasso's often talked on this show.
Always Sunny is just like it's the longest running live action sitcom. Deservedly so.
All yours are done, Michael. So you're out, and we have time. A couple of minutes for one of. We've done Tartuffe, okay, so we covered that. Guardians of the Galaxy, Operation Fortune. No offense on which one do you want to talk about, or just
no offense is just for myself because I absolutely love it, and if anybody likes,
perfect.
It's an old one. It's been there. It's been around for a while. Channel 4 did it. It's quite a few years old. It must be nearly 8 to 10 years old now at this stage since it started. Came across it on Disney. It just landed there lately, which is unusual for English produced stuff to end up on Disney.
Actually, that's really quite true, yeah.
Yeah, you usually see them hitting Amazon or even Netflix. So that's what kind of drew me to. I absolutely love this. If you like a police ensemble, what they do is it's over 3 episodes. It has the most amazing, fantastic cast. You'll recognise loads of them along the way. It's funny. It's got enough horror and goo to show you like the violence of what's going on. There's 3 series in it. There's an overarching story that runs over the course of each series, as well as individual day-to-day stuff. The characters, you just kind of quickly become immersed in them and really like them. I absolutely love it. I think it's just fantastic. I'm trying to get everybody to watch it.
When was it originally produced?
I think it originally came out like 2015, 2016, something like that it was done.
So this might be a little bit like the prison one. It might have sort of not come across people's people's
Now,
radar.
Definitely. Well, I think there'd be an awful lot of people that would have missed it as well because it was on quite late at night because the language is horrendous.
Okay.
It's very kind of like a lot of bad language in it, a lot of just kind of crude talk and that kind of thing in it.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people might have missed it that are of a particular age, but I absolutely love that. I think you just get into it and the characters in it are just. They're just very appealing, and I think when you've got a good, solid characters in it that are given that kind of thing, and there's some fantastic actresses and actors in it, you see them recognise everybody.
Excellent. All right. Listen, thank you so much, Fanula. As always, it's been a pleasure to have you in, as you, Michael. And thank you for your recommendations and your conversations. And thank you, listeners, for being involved in this hour and the show throughout the course of the week. And thank you very much, too, to Donna Marie, who researched and produced the show, and Neve also, who worked on the programme as well. We're all back with you on Monday morning at 9 o'clock. Stay tuned. Michaela Clark is in for John around the Northwest. I think he's away to see the boss. So hopefully everyone who's doing that has a lovely weekend and safe travels to and from. But for me and the team here on the 9 till noon show, we'll chat to you, as I mentioned, on Monday.
It's pizza night.